Good morning, everybody. Um, I it's supposed to start at 1:30, but I see that Law and Crime has it up. They don't have it hasn't started yet, but they have the thing up. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go get my coffee, and at least I'll put it on so we won't miss it if it does come on early. So that's what I'm gonna do real quick. I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna go get my coffee. So therefore, if it does for some reason start early, because they had it for 1:30. But who knows? Maybe they're going to start early. Hey, Cassie. So, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to put the screen up, go get my coffee, um, and I'll be right back. Is that okay? That way, if it does start while I'm getting my coffee, we won't miss it. But good morning, everybody. Hi, Becky. Magpie. So, see, it's not quite on yet. But when it comes on, it'll be on. Actually, hold on. My OCD's act. I got to make sure I shared my audio. I know I did, but it's this thing. I got to do it twice or or I don't know. Even though I know I did it, but I just have to do it again. Especially since I'm going to be getting coffee. So if it starts. But yeah, so what do you guys think? You think he's going to I didn't get to watch the whole trial. So I started watching it and then I got sidetracked with what was it? So is he like set to get life? Is that what you guys think? Hey Misty, Sarah, hey cutie. Hey Gina Marie, oh my honey. Is he set to get life? I don't even know what do you guys think he's gonna get? Or is it like gonna be like a surprise kind of thing? Hey Elvin. All right, guys, I'm gonna go get coffee. Stay there. I'm gonna have a fresh cup of coffee because I do have one, but it's cold, and I want a fresh cup for this. Oh, that's it? Wait, are you serious? See, I didn't know. I should have asked you. I should have asked you before I went on, so I could have been informed. I should have looked it up. Dang it. So 40 years max. Dang. Then so he could get like. Wow, I wish I would have watched the whole trial. I forget. I started watching it, and then remember, we started getting into it. Oh, it was Sarah. Or wait, what case was it? I got into something else, and I didn't get to finish the end of it. But actually, I'm gonna look that up real quick because that you got me curious. Okay, faces sentenced Friday. Let's see. He was initially charged for first-degree murder and endangerment of welfare of a child. And then it says, so initially, okay. Okay, so Gregor faces up to 30 years in prison for aggravated manslaughter charge and a maximum of 10 years for child endangerment. So you're saying he could get the max 30 plus the 10 for child endangerment, so that's 40. I see. Right? Is that what you guys are saying? So wait, I didn't even realize they switched it to manslaughter. Aggravated manslaughter. When did they switch that? Dang it. That's kind of crazy. I don't know if I was the family, I don't know if I'd be. Wow. Wow, manslaughter. So that's what he got? I wish I would have finished watching it. I bet you the mother was like devastated because that doesn't seem right. Okay, thanks, Sarah. Thank you. Okay. I didn't know they had those options. That I thought it was just he was charged with first degree. I didn't know they had the options of because you know how everything's set up different per case. But okay. So they voted on wow. I didn't even oh man. Dang it. Well, yeah, manslaughter. So I mean, he could potentially get like, what is the minimum though that he could get for that? Actually, I'm gonna go get my coffee. I'm gonna look up minimum for aggravated manslaughter in does it make a difference? What is the county? New Jersey. What would the county be though? Hold on. Because I want to look it up per county to see. Or I guess I don't need to do the county. I could just do. All right, I'm gonna look that up real quick. So if it starts, it's on the audio. I have the audio shared and everything. It just doesn't have it on. And I'll be right back. And then I'm gonna look that up on my phone. I want to see the minimum because, like, what it potentially, like, what if the judge is really lax and he gets the minimum? What would that be? You know? All right, I'll be back, guys. I'm back. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. See, but how angle that is. Hold on 1 second. Okay, y'all. Yo. Didn't start yet. So I looked it up, guys. Um, okay, so I looked it up and it said this must be a special circumstance because I looked up New Jersey aggravated manslaughter sentencing and um, it says 10 to 20 years in prison, but when someone is sentenced for aggravated manslaughter, the charge carries a special sentence of 10 to 30 years in prison. So, because the aggravated, I guess, is what that means. Yeah. So 10 to 30. So 10, he could potentially get 10 to 30. So the aggravated must have bumped it up to, so because it's 10 to 20. And then, yeah, because we looked at, well, Florida was like 10 to 20, right? First, no, that's second degree murder for Sarah Boone. That was right. That was 20 to life or 10 to life. No, I think it was, oh yeah, it was 10 to life, but then in Florida it said that they minimum sentence 16.7 or something for minimum, which makes no sense because they said 10 to life. So I don't know. So I'm probably confusing you. I was just comparing it to like Sarah Boone, but Sarah Boone is second degree. Yeah, manslaughter is less of a charge than a freaking second degree murder. I am so confused how the jury. I wish I would have watched that trial to understand how they could have even picked manslaughter. Like, what was it that made them? Because I watched probably what the first, I would say at least 4 days, at least 5 days, maybe. How long was the trial? I feel like I at least watched the first third of it, if not a little bit more. And by watching that, I don't understand how they could have even said manslaughter. So, what did I miss during the end of the trial? I had to have missed something that made make them to think that it was not, well, I guess not intentional, but still second degree murder is if you have no disregard for life or whatever, like what Sarah. So even if it wasn't intentional, he could have still got second degree murder. I don't know. Oh, okay. Thanks, Leslie. Thank you. So you said the child is aggravating. Okay. That makes sense. Well, I'm glad it is because at least now he could get 30 and then that extra 10. How old is he? So he could potentially, he's probably what, in his 30s maybe? He's no older than 40, I wouldn't say, right? So 30 plus, I mean, he would be an old man. Good. He wouldn't have much of a life, but he could still maybe get out on parole early. Dang, I mean, 10 to 30, that's a huge, like, that's almost like a whole life. So, like, he's probably nervous because if you do 10, if he would get 10 compared to 30, well, he's going to get that extra 10. Right. But are they going to do it consecutive or they have to do those concurrent or hold on, let me see. Since they're, I always like to try to learn a little bit. Well, you know what? We might have another 25 minutes. Maybe we should watch. I'll keep my eye on that. Maybe we should just watch some videos on it, unless you just want to chat. Because I do think they did say 1:30 and it's 1:05, and you know how they start late. It's usually never on time. You think? Yeah, he probably will. All right, hold on. I want to see something. I want to look up. I mean, he there's no way he's gonna get concurrently, right? Like they wouldn't do those two charges, the 10 and 30 concurrently, like simultaneously, would they? I mean, I would think that they would do them consecutive, so it'd be like 30 plus 10 if he gets the max. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Good morning, everybody, or it's afternoon, I guess. Is everybody having a good morning so far? I'm slowly getting my new studio set up. I'm still waiting on my computer, so I can't really like test out anything, but I got my mic set up, my desk. I got everything in but my computer now. I got my monitors up. I might need to do something to make it work. But yeah, I'm excited. And then I got to do it might still be a few weeks because I mean, I don't know when the computer's going to come, and then I have to hook up all the equipment, and then get the stuff behind me, the shelves and stuff. So it's slowly coming together. I'm excited. Hi Mel. Hi Colleen. Hey Brooklyn. Nope, not today. Hey, Kiss My Axe. Lindsay Lou. Oh, thank you, Donna. Thank you. Who got him? Who got him? You feel beat up? Why? What's going on? You okay? Yeah. I mean, what do you think though? Because I mean, potentially he could only get 10 years. Think about it. He gets the minimum sentence. They run concurrently. I always get those two mixed up. They run concurrently. And I mean, I don't think that'll happen, but he could. You know, they run concurrently and the minimum. Are you guys hearing that? Like it sounds like they have sound on, or am I just like hearing my whispers again? Yeah, they have the audio on. I could tell that's actually on. It's not in my head. Anyway, I don't know. I might just want to talk because we only have like 20 minutes. You really don't hear that? Thank you. I got it like built, like it's one of those computers that they build for you. So they're like that's why it's taken so long because they're building it. And then I think it's on stage 3, whatever that means. But they had to like put the parts together, and then so I'm excited. Because there's certain things like with streaming and editing that you need more of, and then you don't need some of the other stuff that, like, you know, when you get a computer, it has like all this stuff, and there's certain things that I'm never going to use, but I would rather put the money into some other stuff that I do need to use. So like, you know what I'm saying? So to get like kind of more specific of what you want, it'll be exciting. I hope I'm excited. It better last me a long time. And then I got a new microphone, a new camera, everything's new. What else? New desk, yeah. So I could have I still haven't even got to really like have my plaque, which is and stuff. Hi Nicole. Oh, thanks. Yes, it was televised. Oh, the trial was big. I started well, I didn't actually. I just would talk about it a little bit. No, it was on Law and Crime. Yeah, it was a pretty big one. People were talking about it. I think what happened is I started covering it. I didn't live stream the trial, but I started talking about it. And then I think that's when I got the Taylor stuff, and I got when I get my deep dives, sometimes I get so zoned in that I can't do anything else. And I think I was doing the Taylor stuff, I think. But yeah, this was definitely a big one. Um the treadmill, do you know what it's about? So what were they saying? Like what was the final cause of death? Remember, it was like still up in the air because each doctor, like each expert was saying like something different. The one said like, what is it? Oh my god, I can't even think of it. It's the oh my god, what's the name of it? Where she took him in supposedly, and the doctor said, "Oh, keep him here," and then, oh my lordy, remind me. It's on the tip of my tongue. But then, of course, the defense or the state saying, it's from repeated what a hit to the head. I mean, like abuse, basically, right? There had to be some big hit, blunt force trauma to the heart. Yes, that's what it is. That thank you. Yeah, but see, that's the thing because the treadmill happened weeks before, so I could see that him falling and hitting his chest on it. But then, obviously, it wasn't that occurrence. That could have had some kind of long term effect, I guess. But I think they were just using that to show that he, like the potential of what he's doing. So, I mean, he overworks him. I remember like just overworking. Did they give like a theory of like how they thought his chest, like how did he get the blunt force trauma to his chest though? Because when I watched it, I hadn't seen like I didn't know what they thought. A laceration to the heart. Yes. But what would be the cause of that though? Like a fall, right? Or like hitting them with what though? Yeah, I watched some of it. I could not get into it. And I thought for sure when she took like her testimony, I tried to watch that like 3 times and I just keep falling asleep. It's too boring. I don't know. I cannot get into it. I cannot. I tried because I was like, "Oh, cool, I could talk about this. It's a new trial going on." And it's just I don't know. I could not. It was too slow moving or whatever. Um what is that still on? I mean, that's still going on, right? Because you're saying, did you watch? Is that over already? Yeah, it could be because maybe it happened more than once. I don't know. Hey, Tennessee, what's up? Yeah, but see, that's the thing. If it was from a broken rib, untreated, and then like maybe more roughness of like some of his abuse, the roughness of it, like pushed it into his heart or whatever, then what that would be probably manslaughter and child abuse then too. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that would be appropriate charge. I don't know. Laws are tricky because it's like CA. I mean, you would think that that could still be murder. I mean, you're abusing your kid. I don't know. Legally, though, I don't know. Maybe that would be what it is if it wasn't like one. No, because when people do the abuse long term, I mean, you could still get murder if it ends in like death, right? But we've seen cases where the abuse was so bad and then it ended in death, and I mean, they still can get a murder charge. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I hope he gets long enough. That's all. Oh, she was guilty? How long, Nicole? Wow, how long? Oh, only manslaughter. That's not bad then. I mean, was she really thinking she was going to get like not guilty? Because what was her charge? Right? Was that one of those things she could have got murder or manslaughter? I mean, because manslaughter, I think that's good for her. She freaking shot him. Like, I don't. I mean, I know self defense, but self defense is hard to do. I learned taking those carry classes. You have to almost be like about to die, and like then how do you prove you're about to die? Because he could like in reality he could have grabbed the gun and shot her, right? But it's like it's too hard to prove that. Like, so in her head, she could be like, if I don't shoot him right now, he can overpower me, grab the gun, and he'll kill me. So I have to shoot him. But, oh, he's unarmed, so that's not self-defense. But then it's like, he could have got armed because a man is always going to be stronger than a woman. I don't care. They just have like more muscle mass. He will be able to freaking get that from her. And then he's going to be armed. So it's tricky. Because if you pull that gun out to an abuser, whoa, that sounded like a gunshot, did it not? But if you pull a gun out to an abuser, you better use it, because if not, he's going to grab it and kill you, right? I don't know. I'd have to watch it all, but I could see how it would be self-defense even if he's not armed. But I don't know the whole story. Maybe it wasn't. You guys think it was self-defense or what? I'm talking about the ballerina. Yeah, I know. I don't even want to carry it after learning how, like, they're like, you have to have other means. So they say, like, carry pepper spray too. So you have to like try everything else. And that's the last resort. But like, how do you prove that's the last resort? You know what I'm saying? Because by that time, it's not like I'm a trained whatever. I could wait to the last second where he's coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like this last very second, you have to act quick. So it's like, you know, it's like, it seems not fair because somebody's coming at you. And then they're like, well, you should have used pepper spray or try. Yeah, but what if that didn't work? Then he grabs the gun and kills you. Then you're dead. So, of course, you have to shoot. You know what I'm saying? It's too much, dude. It's too much. If you don't shoot and kill, then they're going to sue you. If you do kill, then the family's going to come back and sue you. Regardless, if you get like a criminal charge, you're going to get sued. It's like, but then it's like, at least you're alive. But then are you alive in prison the rest of your life, or alive bankrupt and broke the rest of your life? I mean, I'm not carrying it, because at least the what is that law? Oh my God, you guys know my recall. It's on the tip of my tongue. I think it's like, it begins with a C. The one where, like, if somebody comes into your house, you could shoot them. So wait, my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, so like, I don't want to carry it, but I'll keep one at home because that's more clear cut. You know what I'm saying? If somebody comes in, say, get back, I got a gun, like, leave me alone or whatever, you warn them, and then they're in the house, you're allowed to shoot them. At least in Ohio you are. Yeah, stand your ground. But it's called something. I forget what the law. Or at least maybe the original. It started off, it's like an old school name or whatever. We learned it in that class. But castle law. Thank you. I said it begins with a C. Did you hear me? I said, I think it begins with a C. Castle law. Yes. So, yeah. So that I would feel better. What, like, the plan is, so you have a record of it, they said is a good idea, is to call 911. If somebody breaks in, call 911 so they're on the line and they can hear you say, hey, I have a gun, leave me alone, leave, or whatever. And then they could hear that you warned them, they came in, and then you'll be more clear, you know? But I'm not going to carry it. I mean, if I have to go somewhere, but I'm not going to like go to the store and carry it. Not worth it. I got my stun gun. I got pepper spray. I mean, I guess if it was, you know, I'll Jen, you know what, if it's really bad where you feel like you can't even like walk down the street, like yeah, if it was a bad and you need it, then do it, you know, but like, I don't need it around here. It would be like a really rare occasion. And then in that case, I would probably be afraid to do anything anyway. I mean, I don't want to, first of all, I don't want to hurt. I can't even kill a freaking spider without feeling bad. Like, do you think I'm really going to be able to like shoot somebody? I don't even know. I don't think I would. Even if they were coming at me, you know what it would take? It would take them hurting somebody I love. Like, to protect me, I probably wouldn't. But if they were coming after like my mom or somebody I love, then I would probably. I mean, yeah, definitely would. If they were, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it would take that than rather just like if it was just me and somebody, I don't know if I'd be able to do it. But if they were like threatening somebody I love, yeah. Hi, Dark Horse Justice. How are you, by the way? Oh, I'm glad I got out of there. I know when I was in there, dude, it was getting so overcrowded because the marijuana laws, the recreation laws was one of the first states besides, I mean, of course, California is always first for all that stuff, but they were like, people first were moving in there just for the license before it even was like when I first moved there. I didn't even realize that it was legal there when I moved there. That wasn't the reason I moved there, even though it was a bonus. I just moved there for the beautiful mountains and stuff, the Rocky Mountains, and I had some college friends that lived there. And then it was just a bonus. I'm like, ooh, this is cool. And then I would say after I was there, maybe 4 or 5 years is when it became recreationally legal. But I got my medical license the first year I was there. Like, I might as well get it. I got a bad back. I will be able to get it. I had surgery on my back and stuff. Like not like a surgery where they like reconstructed. I had like I don't know. But I had this scar on my back that I could show them, and like, plus I have a bad back. So I was able to get it like that. But plus, I mean, you could get it so easy. They're not strict. But then it became recreationally illegal. So then, first of all, everybody was moving to like be a part of the business. And then when it became recreationally legal, you get all this 20-year-olds just coming in because like, oh my God, weed's legal. You have to be 21. So probably 21 and over. It got so crowded. Rent got freaking tripled. They're building apartment complexes. I mean, they couldn't keep up with the people. Yeah, it's crazy. Hi, Holly. I'm glad I got out of there. I mean, it's so beautiful. I miss it for the mountains and stuff, but like the traffic, it was like, oh, the traffic was getting so bad. How have you been, Holly? Thanks, Dark. Wait, I shouldn't short your name to Dark. Dark Horse Justice. How have you been, by the way? Have you been good? How's Libby? Hi, Gracie. Hi, Hive Mind. Defend your castle. Castle doctrine is what it's called. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where I'm gonna get. I still haven't got one yet. I know me and my mom need to just go. I'm a procrastinator if you haven't seen. I mean, look, I was talking about doing my studio for months before I actually ordered the stuff. You know, because I don't know. Some of it's like that was more like just really giving myself time to think of exactly what I wanted and then just letting it like in my head for a while and making sure like, okay, is this what I want to do? So that was a part of the reason. Because, you know, what's an extra couple months to make sure I'm getting what I want? But I am kind of a procrastinator though. Yeah, I bet. It goes too fast. Really? Wow. Oh, I didn't get to watch. I only started watching because I kept falling asleep. So I was only made it to the part where the defense, you know, her lawyers were asking. I didn't make it to the prosecution. Wow. That's crazy. I know like let me do it like this. I know the daughter, like they like zoned in on, not zoned in, but like, you know, put the camera on the daughter sometimes when she was testifying. And, you know, it looked like if looks could kill, man. I mean, because that's her dad, but I don't know. It's like she does not like her. And I just wonder, did she not like her before all this happened? Or is it because of this? Or was there something that she saw, like the way maybe her and her dad always fought? And of course, maybe her dad, you know, made it look like she was the bad guy. I don't know. Yeah, it could be that. Hey, Allie B from Tennessee. Hey, Cool Gamer too. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I never heard that term. Like, is that what that would be? Like, I have I always chalk it up to, well, my indecisiveness because I'm a Libra, but mine's a little bit more. It's, I think, a part of my OCD where I can't, it's hard to make a decision. And I like, in my head, I go through like a million different options of each decision. I mean, it's definitely my OCD, that like the degree, but I'm indecisive anyway. But like, I have to like see all the different options and then like try to play it out. Like, okay, if I do this could happen. This could go good. This is good. And I have to like to a degree, I know that's good to kind of like do it to a degree, but it's to a degree where it's obsessive and it's just, I hate it. And so it does occupy a lot of my time, but a lot of the times I could, with like maybe more silly stuff, I could just have somebody I trust. If I say, hey, I can't make up my mind, pick one for me. And then I'll just not even, I trust you and you pick. That works for me on some things. Just have them pick it and I'm good. But yeah, it's hard. Even like at the store, grocery store. Like which package to pick. Well, if I know it's stupid. It's not like that I care that much about all these little things, but it's an OCD. So it's like, okay, this one looks like it's old, or this one has a mark here. This one has bigger ones of these. And I don't know, just like every little option. But if I'm with somebody and I say, pick which one, I'll be good with it. I'm fine. If they pick it, I have nothing to do with it, then I'm okay with it. Okay. But if I have to pick it, no. Yeah. Well, no, now you could help me with that. I have you be like, Sarah, pick it. Or I could flip a coin, but I'd almost rather have somebody I trust pick it, because then I trust them. And I said, and you know what I'm saying? Flipping a coin is just like, it's still me picking in a way, or like chance. But like if I'm like, Sarah, pick which one because I trust you, and then I'm okay because I trust your choice as much as mine. Does that make sense? So I don't know. It's weird. So I'm glad I have an escape. Like I can let go on some stuff. I mean, some stuff I probably will be like, no, like, but like on a lot of stuff, I could just be like, pick it. I could let go and don't think I'm done. Like I don't have to think about it when I get it. It's just, that's what it is. Yeah, really, Nicole. Yeah, it's crazy. But do you like sync out like all the different options and stuff and like have to be like if I pick, and it's just stupid things too that I think out, like it's stupid. Like it's like, why does it matter? And I know it doesn't, but in my head, I can't help it. Oh, it's about to start, I think, guys. Why did that mute? That was weird. Dude, that was weird that muted. I didn't even do it. Huh. Anyway, it's about to start. I should have done a poll. I can. Hold on. Hi, Susan. Overthinker, yeah. So he's facing 10 to 30 years, minimum 10, 30 years on the manslaughter charge, it's aggravated manslaughter. And then on the child endangerment, he's facing 10. So potentially he could get 10 years if they run concurrently. If he's the minimum 10 and he gets the 10 in child endangerment, he could get 10 years. Max he could get on this is 40 years if he gets the max on both and then running consecutively. So 10 to 40 years, I would say, is the options. But the child endangerment, is there a minimum max on that? Because all it said in the article, it just said 10 years. So hold on. Let me see if I could find that. Child endangerment. All right, let me look up child endangerment charge and see if there's like a minimum max on that, or if they're just set to 10 years or something. I don't know. Hold on. Okay. This is saying 3 to 5 years child endangerment. So he must have a special thing on that too. Oh, that's 3rd degree endangering. Okay, hold on. What degree was that? Hold on, let me see. Is it 1st degree child endangerment? Oh, if I would have read this article, it does say the jury convicted him of a lesser offense. Okay. Oh, that's right. I forgot he bit his head. I almost forgot about that. He freaking bit his head. And I went over that so many times. And at first I was like, no, no. And my conclusion going over it, that treadmill video, so many freaking times, he freaking bit his head. And it was hurting him because like Corey kind of like buckled. He was just like, oh, and his legs like kind of gave out as he was freaking biting his head. That's just sick. Oh yeah, it does say 130. I wish I would have read this whole article earlier when I had it up when I first started. Because all the questions I asked you guys, blunt force trauma, lacerations to his heart and liver. All right, I'm trying to find what endangerment. Oh, I guess it would be, is it 1st degree child endangerment or something? It's not saying. Because the 3rd degree is 3 to 5 years. But there has to be one where there's 10 years because, okay, 1st degree endangering is 10 to 20 years. But I don't know if it was 1st degree. Is there a middle? Hold on. Is there a 2nd degree? You know? I'm going to look this up. Okay, so I just said child endangerment. Let me look here. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So the 1st degree is 10 to 20 years in child endangerment, and the 3rd degree is 3 to 5 years. Unless if the reason they're saying 10 years in the article, maybe because the jury was able to choose that or something. Does anybody know? Hey, Kelsey. Oh, really? Yes, Susan. Well, maybe we'll watch it after this. I'll show you. Yes, I think so. Of course, he's probably going to argue. I mean, he probably would say no, but I think it's what it looks like to me. Well, how many people think that he bit his head? Anybody? Like, what do you guys think? Yeah. Yes. Was there like I wonder, was there a mark on his head from his teeth, I wonder? Yeah, I think he did too. I think he did. Um yeah, I can't find just everything I keep looking up is just saying found guilty on child endangerment. So, I don't know.
Court Smart's operated by our court clerk, Sue H. Our official court reporter is present. She is the official record. The Court Smart recording is not available for release. I'd ask counsel to please enter their appearances on the record.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Christine Lento, appearing on behalf of the state.
Assistant Prosecutor Jamie Schroen for the state.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lento. Good afternoon, Ms. Schroen. Mario, good afternoon, Your Honor. Mario Luce on behalf of Mr. Gregor, who is seated to my left.
Thank you both. Good afternoon, Mr. Gregor. Mr. Gallucci, there is a pre-sentence investigation report in this matter prepared in anticipation of sentencing. Did you have an opportunity to review it with your client, and is it accurate for sentencing?
It is, Judge. I have an opportunity to review my client. I actually reviewed it with him in person this week, and it is accurate. There are no corrections to be made to it.
Thank you. Mr. Gregor, you have the right to address me regarding your sentencing, sir. You have 45 days from today to appeal the sentence I'm about to impose upon you. If you miss that time frame, you could lose your right to appeal. If you can't afford an attorney on an appeal, one will be appointed for you. Separately, you have 5 years from today to file what's known as a petition for post-conviction relief. Those 5 years are not enlarged or extended by any time spent on appeals. If you miss the 5-year time frame, you could lose your right to petition. And again, if you couldn't afford an attorney on a petition, won't be appointed for you. Those are your appellate rights, sir. Do you understand those?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Mr. Gallucci, at some point today, would you have Mr. Gregor execute an appeal rights form?
Absolutely.
Should be one in the box right in front of you there. All right, so I'll hear from defense counsel. Mr. Gregor, if he wishes to make a statement. I'll hear from Mr. Gallucci if he has any family members of the defense that wish to be heard, and I'll hear whether the state objects or consents to that. Then I'll hear from the state, and I'll let the state guide me as to what victims would like to be heard. Mr. Gallucci.
Your Honor, I just want to start by commending the staff that you have here in Ocean County, from the sheriff's offices to the clerks, all the people that I was involved with over the length of this trial. And even today, they've treated me and my client with the utmost respect and dignity, and they should be commended for that.
Thank you for those comments.
Thank you. Judge Serno is here. We have a young lady who overcame many obstacles in her life and is now the mother of a new child. She is moving on with her life, but will always be reminded on a daily basis of the loss of her first child. Then we have a young man here in the prime of his career who is just convicted of very serious crimes that will lead to his incarceration for a significant amount of time. And then we have Corey, who I never had the opportunity to meet, but from the videos I've seen and the pictures I've seen, was a gregarious, energetic, funny child who loved the solar system. His parents, Dave and Carolyn, have regaled me with stories of Corey. And he's the victim here. So I'm going to rely on my submission to you and the mitigating factors. I believe I rely on mitigating factor 2, 7, 8, 9, and I'm going to ask you to craft a very fast sentence.
Thank you. I acknowledge receipt of the sentencing memorandum by defense counsel, the sentencing memorandum by the state, some additional exhibits by the state, and a variety of letters, which I'll discuss in detail later. Mr. Gregor, sir, is there anything you'd like to say about yourself or your case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please go ahead.
Just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And Brianna, we haven't talked since Corey passed away. With everything that has been said, I just want to tell you that I'm sorry that you lost Corey. He was, to say simply, the best. I know we'll miss him for the rest of our lives. And the 2 years that I knew Corey were very difficult, but they were the greatest years of my life. And he was a happy, energetic, loving, radiant young boy who flourished in his life in all aspects the last year of his life. And sorry. That would be how I remember him. And Corey, wherever you are, I just want to say that I'm proud of you and everything that you did. The last months of his life, us three, Brianna, Corey, and me, we spent more time together than apart. All those hikes and walks, trips to the beach, time spent playing football and all the other sports, going to Sky Zone, the park, the playground, sledding, and all of that, I saw how much Brianna loved Corey, how much he loved her, and how well we could co-parent together. Those memories and all the good times, they'll be what I remember, and they helped me get through the tough days. And I hope that they can help you too, Brianna. I'm sorry you believe I could have done this to our son, and it pains me to know that you view my actions those months together as ingenuine, that I could have hurt the most important person in my life. What happened on March 20th was inexcusable. To To you, Brianna, your family, and mine, I want to apologize that you had to see Corey treated that way. He never deserved it. I understand this single moment will overshadow all of the others, but it's not representative of who I am, who Corey was, and his relationship with me and him. I want to assure you that on April 2nd, I did nothing to cause Corey's passing. I didn't hurt my son. I love him and I still do. I regret not bringing him to the hospital sooner. I didn't know how sick he was. I didn't know. I just thought he was tired. And whether you believe Dr. Bodden or Dr. Andrews' version of the events, the outcome is still the same. Corey is gone. He had so much to give this world, and he still can. What we do in his memory, for his memory, things that he would want us to do, that's all we have now. To the court staff, sheriff officers, to the jury, and to you, Your Honor, thank you for being professional through this whole process. I understand you have a job to do today, Your Honor. Sentence me for the crimes I've been convicted of today. I ask that you please consider all of the evidence presented in and out of this courtroom when making your decision today. I ask you to sentence me fairly, taking into consideration my entire life, and not just based on the 12 days. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Mr. Bellucci, anything further from the defense side?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. And I'll defer to either prosecutor for the state.
Thank you, Judge. Corey was a beautiful 6-year-old whose life was taken from him, and there's nothing that I am going to be able to say that is more important than the facts that came out in this courtroom, and more important as to what the defendant did. It is difficult to think about the suffering that Corey had to endure both during his life and during his death. It is difficult to contemplate the fear that he must have lived with every single day, doing the little things in life and even doing the simple things every time that he was with his father, the defendant. Christopher Gregor abused his son. He ended his life. And then he left him alone in the hospital to die. One can only imagine what was going through Corey's mind in those last moments. One could only imagine how scared he was, how confused that he was, how truly abandoned that he felt. And there is simply no mitigation for those actions. Aggravating factor number 1 applies. The defendant's actions were cruel and depraved beyond the elements of the offense. In regard to the endangering, Your Honor, Corey didn't merely run on a treadmill and fall. He fell. The defendant bit him on the head, and he fell 5 more times. In regard to the ending of his life, Corey suffered a laceration to his heart, but those were not the only injuries. He also had a lacerated liver and a bruise to his lungs. He suffered multiple injuries. While Corey was at the apartment, he vomited, he defecated, he endured suffering. While Corey was fighting for his life, the defendant took a selfie not even having the decency to put a shirt on Corey, while Corey's body was shutting down. The defendant ordered food. When Corey was going into cardiac arrest, the defendant was more concerned about the date that he had set up for that night. The defendant didn't call 911, he didn't call a doctor, he didn't call an ambulance, he did nothing. And this added to the suffering that that little boy had to undergo. The defendant then throws Corey in the back seat of the car where he is left all alone. When the defendant gets to the hospital, he tells the staff not to contact Corey's mother. While he's on the phone with Corey's mother, he does not tell her where Corey is. Not only did he end Corey's life, but he took away his last moments that he had with his family. And there is no mitigation for that. Corey did not pass surrounded by those he loved, holding his hand, comforting him. He passed alone with strangers. Aggravating factor number 2 applies. Corey was particularly vulnerable and incapable of resistance. And this goes beyond the elements of the offense. It goes beyond the father and son relationship and the young age of Corey. The defendant abused Corey. He utilized this relationship of abuse to effectuate his crimes. He relied upon the fact that this little boy was scared and wasn't going to tell in order to do what he did. He was particularly vulnerable due to how little he was, due to the relationship and dominance and control, and also due to the fact that he did have learning disabilities and maybe couldn't communicate as well as others, especially at that age. Aggravating factor number 3 applies. There is a risk that the defendant will commit another offense, and the state asks that heavy weight be afforded to that factor. The defendant in this particular case was motivated by anger at Corey's mother, anger at the situation, and he punished Corey for this. And the rage that he displays shows us that he is a dangerous person with no impulse control, and he will commit more crimes. The defendant has shown a complete disregard for the law, for DCP&P, and the court system. The morning of Corey's death, the defendant called DCP&P, blaming others that he was not responsible for doing anything to Corey. But meanwhile, he was the only person who had been abusing him. He manipulated the system, and he used the system so he could effectuate his continued abuse and ended Corey's life. During the trial, he attempted to change his mother's testimony and referred to this trial as a game. Well, it's not a game. Corey's life was taken from him. The defendant has failed to take responsibility for his actions at the time of the offense, and anything that we see in court here today, the state submits, it is only for the benefit of the defendant. The only thing Christopher Gregor cares about is himself and self-preservation. When the defendant believed that Corey had passed and he leaves the hospital, he put as many miles between what he did as he possibly could, showing his failure to take responsibility and the fact that he will commit additional offenses. He only came back to New Jersey because he hadn't been charged, showing the fact that he will commit additional offenses. Aggravating factor number 9 applies, the need to deter, and the state submits that heavy weight should be given to this factor. It goes without saying, Your Honor, that it is society's greatest interest to protect its children. Simply, there is no society without children, without the next generation, and a sentence should be imposed to deter anyone from abusing, hurting, or ending a child's life. There are no mitigating factors. Defendant's argument that mitigating factor number 2 applies and that he did not contemplate that the conduct would cause or threaten serious harm is without merit. A jury listened to the evidence and concluded that the defendant caused Corey's death while manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life. Mitigating 7 does not apply. The defendant has not lived a law-abiding life. And while the state recognizes that he does not have any indictable superior court convictions, he has had contacts with the law for years in New Jersey, in Maryland, in Florida, and Connecticut. Although any of these things individually may not mean a lot, when you look at them cumulatively, he has not lived a law-abiding life. Mitigating factor 8 does not apply. The defendant's conduct was the result of circumstances likely to reoccur. Defense attorney's argument in the sentencing memorandum somehow that Corey had an EEP and he was a new father, none of this shows mitigation. What it shows is a particular vulnerability of Corey. The state has also reviewed some of the letters that were submitted on the defendant's behalf, and the state submits that none of those letters show any type of mitigation. And there just seems to be a lack of concern or a disregard as to the facts that came out during the trial. And based on all of these things, Your Honor, the state is asking for the maximum sentence allowable under the law. I know that the victim's family is present and they would like to address the court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And where would you like the victim's family to address the court from?
It's my understanding, Your Honor, that they are going to proceed up to the witness stand.
And I know we've had some people testify at trial, so obviously your full names were provided then, but if you qualify under the Victims' Rights Act, so you don't need to provide your full name. If you'd be more comfortable, you can just provide your first and last initial. But if you are comfortable providing your full name, then you're welcome to do that too. So I'll let you tell me who would like to come up first.
Your Honor, I believe that Corey's grandfather would first like to speak, and he would like to actually read a letter from Corey's aunt, if he may approach.
Hi, sir. Sure. Come on up. Just watch your step. And again, you either provide us with your full name or just your initials.
Sure. Vito Michelo.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Corey's grandfather. Thank you. My daughter has a letter that my youngest daughter that she is too emotional to read, so I'm going to read it, and it's something that I believe in strongly in her words. Your Honor, I am Corey Michelo's aunt. I am writing this victim impact letter and asking that you give Christopher the maximum sentence possible for the following reasons. To start off, I was very involved in Corey's life from the day he was born, as all of us were. Corey's death at the hands of Chris, a person that was supposed to love him, had left a hole in the hearts of all his family, including myself. I can assure you that Corey was always happy and loved child, up until the day Christopher entered his life. I was there the day Corey was dropped off by Christopher for the very first visit. I remember that Corey went to the room when he got home, and I noticed his lip was swollen. Upon asking him what happened, he told me his father slapped him. This goes to show Chris's intentions from the very first visit. Chris immediately chose to exert power, control, and violence to establish fear in Corey, instead of showing love, caring, established respect between them. During Christopher's visitations, I was often given the painful job of being the one to give Corey to the DCP&P worker. Many times when he showed up, he would hide in the closet and beg not to go, to the point of having a panic attack. He would tell me how scared he was of his dad and to please not make him go. As much as I wanted to tell him he didn't have to go, I didn't have a choice in the matter. Sadly, this continued for the rest of Corey's life, very short life. This is the painful reality of what Corey and my entire family had to deal with every single time he was forced to see Christopher. I think it's only fair that Christopher has to finally face the consequences of his actions. The jury of his peers found him guilty, and I urge you to make him remain in prison for the maximum amount of time possible under the law. Corey didn't have a choice and wasn't shown any mercy. So either should Chris be given a choice of shown any mercy. I would go on and tell you stories. I could go on and tell you stories about the abuse Corey unfortunately had to endure. I truly hope you heard enough during the course of the trial and will render a significant sentence that forces Chris to understand the magnitude of his actions and deters others from abusing innocent children. Thank you for your time, Corey's aunt, Nicole Mitchell. And I just want to add that for me and the times I spent with Corey, how he was trained to not say anything because he knew the ramifications. He couldn't tell me that was happening. I wanted him to tell me because I wanted to try to address it. I did try to address it with DCP&P. I made the phone calls, but he was definitely afraid of this guy. And in my short amount of times interacting with Chris, he's definitely got a very bad anger streak in him and a hate streak in him. So like I said, and like she said, please, what he said is not true. He's a very hurtful person. He's very mean. And if he has a chance to do it again, he will do it again. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Lento.
Your Honor, I believe that Corey's grandmother would also like to address the court.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you. Please watch your step. And you can either give us your full name or just your initials.
Rebecca Mitchell, Corey's Gma.
Thank you, ma'am.
Your Honor, I want to start by thanking you for allowing me to address you today. I will not stand here and tell you that I forgive this monster, because I don't, and I will never. You'll never hear those words come out of my mouth. The actions of this man have greatly affected my life, the lives of my 2 daughters, my 2 sons, and my granddaughter, and 19,000 others from around the world. including Corey's teachers and doctors. On April 2nd, 2021, this man lost control and he beat my grandson, and he denied him medical attention for several hours, only taking him to the hospital by car when Corey was within an hour of death, and leaving him to die with only a nurse and hospital staff around him, denying my daughter and myself to be with Corey, and denying Corey the comfort of having people who loved him with him as he took his last breath. This is not a man who should be shown mercy. My daughter slept in my bed many nights since Corey was murdered because she was afraid to be alone. We have nightmares. I see that treadmill video in my nightmares. That video that this monster sat in this courtroom and watched and didn't shed a tear. Not 1 ounce of remorse. I'm being treated for several mental health disorders since Corey was murdered. PTSD, nightmare disorder, depression and anxiety. I'm on several medications to get through the day. I can't work. I'm no longer living, Your Honor. I'm existing. Your Honor, this man took advantage of a 16-year-old child when he was 21. He used alcohol and drugs, and Corey was conceived as a result. Corey was the dirty little secret that Chris never wanted anyone to know about. He demanded an abortion. He met Corey when he came home from the hospital. He knew Corey existed, but hid the truth from his family for years. None of the Gregors wanted Corey. David Gregor told me Corey should have been aborted. This man has a long history of alcohol abuse, 2 DUIs, drug abuse, domestic violence resulting in a restraining order, and child abuse that started long before he had visitations with Corey. He abused an ex-girlfriend's son while they were living in the Gregor home in Monroe Township. The DCPMP case was closed after the girl moved out of state. The system failed Corey, but Chris Gregor and his family also failed Corey. This man has never had to answer for any bad behavior. It seems it always went away somehow. Your Honor, my life will never be the same. Corey was wanted, loved, and doted upon by my family. We enjoyed watching and helping Brianna raise him. I have difficulty going into a store and seeing little boy clothes and toys that Corey would have loved. In September, when everyone is preparing their kids to go back to school, I wonder what backpack or shoes Corey would have chosen. I can't go to my nephew's house or my great nephew's birthday parties because seeing them makes me sad. Corey should be at those parties. I find myself looking at kids who are the age Corey would have been, and I wonder what Corey would look like now. I cry several times a day. My physical appearance has changed. My health has declined. I've aged. I'm angry, sad, bitter, and mostly I'm broken. This man has shown no remorse as he sat through the trial. I watched every second, and he didn't shed a tear for Corey. He's had discussions with fellow inmates about wanting Brianna to be killed. I'm sure he doesn't think we heard about that, but with social media, things do get out. This is not a man who can be rehabilitated. My family lives in fear, wondering if he will attempt to have my daughter killed, because we all know what he's capable of. My granddaughter visits her brother's grave and sits on the ground and plays with toys left there for Corey by strangers from all over the world. This makes me so sad. Watching Brianna watch her daughter play at Corey's resting place. And Corey wanted a baby sister so bad, and now she's here, but he's not. And Chris Gregor is the reason he isn't here. I often wonder what or how we will explain to my granddaughter that Corey isn't here Do we tell her his father killed him so then she can wonder if that's what daddies do? Your Honor, Corey also wanted a father, but instead he got this monster who ridiculed him, deprived him of food, love, compassion, and beat him and abused him daily until his final beating on April 2nd, 2021. Your Honor, Corey knew he was going to die. On the Sunday prior to Corey's death, just 5 days before his death, Corey was at my house and preparing to take a bath. When he undressed, he was covered in bruises in various stages of healing. One stuck out because it was very large, and it was on the left side of his chest. I had to turn away so Corey didn't see the tears in my eyes. Once Corey was dressed, we sat in my bed. Corey looked at me and he said, "Hey, Gima, does God see what my daddy does to me?" I told him God sees everything. His voice got very low. He said, "Why doesn't he help me?" My heart was breaking as I told him that God was helping someone else who needed him more right now. Corey then asked why his daddy wasn't going to hell. And I replied, "He will someday." That same Sunday, Corey was outside writing with chalk on the sidewalk. Later in the day, Brianna and I noticed that Corey had written, "I died," near our front door. Corey's curiosity about God, heaven, and death grew prior to his death. On April 2nd, when Corey was getting ready to go back to Chris Gregor's house, I told him, "Take my cell phone and hide it and call when, not if, when his dad beats him." He said, "Gima, I can't." I told him to run to a neighbor, to which he replied, "I can't," his little face so serious. Corey knew nobody could help him. He knew he was going to die, and he accepted it. Your Honor, my conversation with Corey 5 days prior to his death and the day of his death will forever haunt me. My family was not allowed to be with Corey as he took his last breath because this man wouldn't tell us where Corey was. We weren't allowed to see Corey after he passed at the hospital because he was now evidence. My 6-year-old grandson was dead and now labeled evidence. This is what I have to live with every single day. Corey was taught in preschool by a lovely teacher, Kristen Oyen, that actions have consequences. Please teach this man that his actions have consequences. On May 1st, 2014, Corey Travis Michelow was born. I was there holding Brianna's hand, and I was there to cut Corey's umbilical cord. When he was placed in my arms for that very first time, I whispered, "Hi, baby. I'm your grandma. I'll love you and protect you forever." Your Honor, I wasn't able to keep my promise to protect Corey, so I'm begging you to give Chris Gregor the harshest punishment possible today. Corey Travis Michelow loved the solar system. He loved to draw. He loved his mommy and his family. He was smart and funny. He loved helping others. Corey wanted a daddy, but instead, he got this monster, Chris Gregor. Your Honor, please give Corey justice today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ms. Lento.
Thank you, Judge. I believe that Corey's mother would also like to address the court.
Hi, please come on up. Please watch your step. Again, you can use your initials, your full name.
Brianna Mitchell.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
Your Honor, my name is Brianna Mitchell, and I appear before you today not only as a grieving mother, but also an advocate for justice. On behalf of my son, Corey, I stand here before you to plead for justice that Corey rightfully deserves, and to press for the maximum sentence of Christopher Gregor, whose actions have inflicted irreparable harm in our lives. For you to fully understand the gravity of the situation, I will flash back to the July of 2013. This day marks the beginning of a traumatic journey defined by manipulation, abuse, and ultimately an unspeakable loss. At 16, I first met the defendant, who was 21 at the time. He proceeded to feed me drugs, alcohol, and took complete advantage of me, which led to the conception of Corey. From day one of my pregnancy, I knew I would keep Corey regardless of the way he was conceived. Corey didn't ask to be brought into this world, and I knew I owed it to him to bring him into this world with unconditional love. Corey was and still is my life, my world, and my everything. I would also like to speak about my past, which I am not 100% proud of. You heard a lot about it throughout the trial, and so did a lot of the world. It was very upsetting for that to come out because I've worked extremely hard for many years to be where I am today. I admit I abused drugs, but during the trial it was made out that for some reason my son deserved to be killed because his mom was a drug addict. That is absolutely disgusting. I stand here today clean and sober, and I know Corey would be so proud of me. Unfortunately, my son is no longer here to tell his story, so I'm here to be his voice and tell his story along with all the others sitting in the gallery who have continued to stand by me. Not once have you seen the defendant shed a tear for Corey in the last 3.5 years since he killed him, and today was fake. I don't believe a word he said, and I don't accept any apologies. He has no remorse for any of the actions he committed, and his only remorse, like we saw today, was for himself because he got caught and convicted. Another reason I could think of is, everything he had done to Corey was done out of spite towards me. Another reason I could think of is he's sick in the head and used Corey as his punching bag. On April 2nd of 2021, it was not the first time that he abused Corey, but it was the last time. He never had an ounce of love for Corey. And to the defendant, Corey was just an inconvenience in his life. He never hugged him. He never praised him. He never told him he was proud of him or that he did a good job. He punished Corey every chance that he could get, and I cannot even begin to imagine what my son dealt with behind closed doors with this man. On April 2nd of 2021, I hesitantly dropped Corey off at the defendant's home, which is a mistake that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I kissed my son goodbye unknowingly for the last time. I wish I knew what was going to happen and I would never let him go. At 3 p.m. the same day, I received a phone call from the defendant where he stated Corey was very sick and he was taking him to the hospital, and then hung up on me after he asked for my insurance card. As an extremely concerned mother, I called him back with no answer and continued to do so along with texts for hours to find out where Corey was and what was going on. For those few hours, my mother and I called every hospital in the area with no luck. The very last hospital finally said he was there, that there was a knock on the door. It was our local police there to tell me Corey had passed away. My healthy 6-year-old boy who was just alive and well with me a few hours ago is dead. My heart dropped and my whole body collapsed from the shock that took over my whole body. I was unable to breathe. My mind was racing, and I felt like I was no longer inside my body. All I remember is screaming that they had the wrong child because Corey was fine this morning. I actually convinced myself that it wasn't him and they had the wrong kid for a while. My next question was, where is Chris? I needed to know what happened, and he was nowhere to be found until the next day, when I found out he was in Tennessee. No one was able to tell me what happened to Corey except Corey died at the hospital. I couldn't even see my son until a week later at his funeral because his body was evidence. But the defendant took away my chance to say goodbye to Corey while he was passing away. And not once did he pick up the phone he was using to converse with many of his girlfriends, to call 911, to seek medical attention, which could have potentially saved Corey's life. Instead, he allowed Corey to suffer silently for hours. Once he realized how bad it was, he threw him in the car and then proceeded to drive 15 minutes to the hospital. He slowly walked Corey into the hospital with no sense of urgency, even when he knew how bad his condition was. I fully believe that if we took Corey to the hospital as soon as he received the lethal blow, he could still be here today. There were many steps he could have taken to save my son's life. Instead, he sat home and let Corey slowly die for hours. Every day since April 2nd has been an absolute living nightmare, and it is now the new reality for me to replay Corey's horrific death repeatedly in my head. It's the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning, and the last thing I think about before I fall asleep at night. I dread normal conversation with people because I always get asked, how many kids do you have? I say 2, and they follow up asking how old are they. That's when the grief sinks in, and I have to tell them my 6-year-old was killed by his father. It is such an indescribable feeling when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. A sense of guilt was all I could feel. I wanted more kids, but how do I love another child? Is it fair to Corey? That is all I could think about. Now I know this is not true, and I love my daughter with all my heart, but I always will feel an emptiness, no matter how many children I have. My new reality is explaining to my daughter what happened to her big brother and why is he not here. I live in fear every day, every second of the day, that something will happen to my daughter, and I will lose her too. It's a horrible feeling, and it causes me such bad anxiety. I take her to the cemetery to see Corey every weekend, and at 1.5 years old, she knows where Corey is, buried. It is every week. It is heartbreaking. She sits and plays with the cars and toys we left there for him. I live in a nightmare, and I would never wish this feeling or how I must live on my worst enemy. Throughout everything he did to Corey, Corey still loved him. He looked up to you, and he still wanted to be, I'm sorry. And he still wanted him to be like a real father who treated him like a son. Instead of being a good role model for Corey, he decided to beat him to death. Why? Were you jealous of him? Did you hate me so much that you took it out on Corey? Were you abused as a child? Not that that's a good excuse, because you could have overcome it and became the protector he needed as a child, but instead you became a killer. There was no amount of love in his actions, and only a disturbing amount of hate. It seems like he hated Corey simply because I loved him, and he felt deprived of that love. He couldn't even control himself for long because after the first visit with my son, he started abusing him. My son didn't even know him, and he was beating him. He was abusing him from the first time. I thank God. I hate you for not letting me say goodbye to my son, but I thank God your face is not the last one he saw. I'm sorry. What this monster did was pathetic, disgusting, and I wish him nothing but the worst. One could only hope that karma comes to him quickly. After all he's done, you would hope he'd admit what he's done, but no. Instead of grieving, I had to fight for justice for 3 long years. Go to trial just to relive everything. I had to see that video that I never wanted to see. I didn't have to see it until 2 weeks before this trial. I went 3 years without seeing it. Oh, I'm sorry. Just for you to be found guilty anyway. What was the point of that? Just to make it worse for us? Are you that crazy that you convinced yourself you didn't do this? I hate you. I will never forgive you. And I'm going to skip that one. You have stolen my full potential at happiness. And I will never have my son back. My family will never feel whole again. My daughter will never get to meet her brother. And my boyfriend will never get to be the father that the defendant should have been to our son. He took my whole world away from me. He has shown and proven to be that special kind of dirtbag he claimed I was. Your Honor, all this monster had to do was say he did not want to be a father. No one would have made him. I would have happily continued to raise my son alone with the help of my family. He had many opportunities not to do this to him. He is in this current situation due to his own actions, and every day he will have to live with this. He deserves nothing less than to experience the pain, suffering, and isolation that he inflicted on Corey. I hope that every moment he spends in prison is haunted by the torment of knowing he killed my child. I fear when Christopher Gregor gets out of jail, whenever that is, he will come after my family and I again. I fear for our lives. His twisted mind truly thinks that I caused all this and that he's in jail because of me, even though he's here because he killed him. I truly believe if he ever gets out and gets the opportunity, he will kill me. Your Honor, Corey should be going into 5th grade in September, hanging out with his friends, playing sports and enjoying his life. Instead, he will never experience finding his first girlfriend, graduating high school, falling in love, driving a car, getting married, or having kids. Christopher robbed him of his entire future, and Corey could have easily lived until he was 80 years old. He stole over 70 years from Corey and thousands of memories he could have made. I will never see my son again. I miss him and I love him so much. There are countless reasons Christopher deserves the maximum sentence. He rejected what I considered a generous plea deal, which shows how selfish and ignorant he is as a person. I beg you to not allow this injustice to continue, and he must face the full consequences of his actions. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Your Honor.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ms. Lenta,
Your Honor, the state would move for imposition of sentence. I don't know if counsel has anything else.
you previously asked for permission to play some video. You wish to do that? Mr. Galucci, do you have something else?
Yeah, Your Honor, Mr. Gregor, if you would allow it, at this point, would like to address the court.
What's the state's position?
Your Honor, we would defer to the court.
So I offered you that opportunity earlier, and I don't want this to become, I was about to ask Ms. Michelot to address her comments to me, but I don't want this to become an attack by one family on the other. I'd be happy to hear comments directed towards character issues or the sentence to be imposed, not to refute topics that are outside the scope of this trial. So with that proviso, I'll be happy to hear from, you're talking about David Gregor, correct?
I am.
Yes.
I haven't spoken to him, so his son would like him not to speak.
Well, I'm not going to take a position one way or the other. Mr. Gregor, I recognize you obviously from testifying at the trial. If you'd like to speak. I have your letter. I read your letter and your wife's letter.
To be honest with you, having just learned I had the opportunity to speak 5 minutes before we began, I actually would like to read the sentencing letter as it's all factual information and is related to the last year and a half of Corey's life.
So it's questionable whether or not you actually have the right to speak. What I indicated to Mr. Galucci is my practice typically is to exercise some discretion to allow an immediate family member of a defendant to speak. But I've read every single letter submitted on behalf of the defense. And so and your letter is 8 pages, single spaced. So I'll be happy to hear some comments from you or some summary of that. But I mean, I can read, sir, and there's no point you reading all 8 pages again for the benefit of whoever. I have it. I've read it thoroughly. So, but again, I'd be happy to hear from you by way of whatever you'd like to add or summarize.
Your Honor, if you don't mind me summarizing on the fly, I think there's factual information that refutes some of what I just heard.
Your Honor, the state's going to object to that. I mean, we're here for a sentencing. The defendant has been convicted by a jury of his peers. Him making, at this point in time in the sentencing, factual discrepancy arguments is not appropriate, and we would object to his comments at this point.
So first, let me say that despite all of the information that's been submitted by both sides, I'm not allowed to sentence someone for things that haven't been proven. So while I appreciate people have made various comments about conduct outside the scope of these crimes, I'm just simply, and I was going to place the detailed reasons on the record why I'm not permitted to consider certain things. So you may not need to refute the things you need to refute, but I'm going to exercise my discretion and allow you to provide some type of verbal statement to the court that you believe is relevant to the sentencing, with the understanding the state can object in the middle of that if it becomes improper.
Thank you, Judge.
I just ask you to perhaps move up a little bit so we can make sure we pick you up on the court's recording system. That's perfect, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
So I said in the court, for when we were allowed, my wife and I, for every day I could be at the hearing, there was a lot of information in terms of Corey's upbringing while he was at the Gregor house in Monroe Township. And quite frankly, there were some references today to it that alluded to the fact that he was abused during that time period. At the first visit, which I was a part of, he left with a bloody lip, and he did, from getting a soccer ball in the mouth when he bent down to pick up the ball. I think, in all fairness to Chris, despite the fact that we looked at a 12-day time period in terms of determining his guilt, that you look at the holistic life with Corey from the day he entered the Gregor household on the first visits to the point where they left and they went to morning. I think it's unfair to say that during that time period, he was unhappy, he was afraid to go to the Gregor house at first when he was doing the visitations. He liked nothing better than to come to our house. He was treated like a king. Many times he was supervised with myself and my wife. His turnaround in school was absolutely incredible. He came to us classified as emotionally disturbed. And part of the reason that we agreed as a family to assist Chris in bringing him to our home was the background that not only Chris had with schooling and dealing with children who had those kinds of disabilities, was because of my involvement with my children and bringing them up through the education system. I listened and I heard about socioeconomic as to why he was doing so well with us in terms of his development, and I think that's just totally unfair. Corey thrived when he was in Monroe in every aspect. His speech improved, his ability to go from classes where he needed constant help to thriving in a general education class, to the markedly increase of his grades, to his social ability. He joined all types of sports. Chris was actively involved in everything from soccer, basketball, baseball, whatever he could play, Chris fostered it. Chris volunteered to coach. To say that he was unhappy and he was abused, it didn't go on for the 8 months he was at our house. And I can say that on behalf of my wife, my other son, and my daughter, who interacted with him daily. When I hear stories about how he was afraid to come to the house and talk about certain things that Chris did, there are many things he shared with me that I'm sure you don't want to hear in terms of his treatment beyond our house. It's in my letter, and I know you've read it. I also know that you have access to the DCP reports. There's a lot of factual information that didn't come out in the trial, and it's a shame. I know you consider, the judge, the jury considered only the evidence that was presented. The problem is all this information went out through the media, and only one side went out. You've noticed since day one that my family and I sat back and said nothing. There's much we could say to counter what was being presented here and what was being presented in terms of attacking us on social media. There's so much more to say. I trust that you've read the 8-page letter. I had only hoped that the information in there, and it's all factual information, it's all backed up by going to a police report, a DCP report, statements on the telephone, everything that I said, there's a piece to back it up. It's evidence. It's not my opinion. It actually happened. The problem is those 8 pages are not read to anyone else. It's going to be up to me and my family subsequent to this to get that information out, because what was presented here is so one-sided. I don't know. And I don't use the word fair or equitable, but in terms of Corey's upbringing and how well he was doing, it wasn't talked about and it wasn't presented. And I think that's a shame.
Thank you for your comments, sir. All right, anything more from the state?
Your Honor, we do have some pictures we would like to show the court regarding Corey. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. This case is about Corey, and the state would move for imposition of sentence.
So thank you. The record will reflect that the state played a PowerPoint type video presentation of approximately 3 or 4 minutes of certainly non-inflammatory pictures of Corey, many of them appearing to be when he was engaged in certain activities, others appearing to be perhaps some class pictures or school pictures. The court notes that that is specifically permitted under the Victim Rights Act, New Jersey Statute 52:4B-36.1 not only allows the survivors of a homicide victim to play or to speak at sentencing, but also to present a photograph comprised of a still photograph, a computer-generated presentation, or a video presentation of the victim. And even there was no objection, I wanted to place on the record that that is what's occurred, and the pictures were all thoughtful presentations of Corey as a boy up to approximately 6 years of age. I'm going to make a series of findings and review some facts. I appreciate you had your client stand. When I get to pronouncing sentence, I'll ask him to stand again. So first, there's a pre-sentence report prepared in this matter which the court's required to consider. It confirms that defendant was found guilty by a jury verdict on May 31, 2024 of counts 1 and 2 in indictment 22-07-1332, count 1 being endangering the welfare of a child, a second-degree crime for events occurring on March 20, 2021, and count 2, the lesser included offense of aggravated manslaughter, a first-degree crime for events occurring on April 2nd, 2021. Defendant is now 32 years of age. He reported to the pre-sentence investigator that he's in poor physical health as a result of sports injuries, including a left ankle injury. Those injuries are not particularly relevant for sentencing. Defendant has been able to receive appropriate care in the Ocean County Jail, and the New Jersey Department of Corrections would be able to provide appropriate care for any such injuries. He reports being in good mental health. He graduated Monroe High School in 2010, and he attended various colleges, first in Connecticut and then transferring to various other locations, ultimately attaining a Bachelor's of Science degree in psychology in 2015 from Ashford University. He thereafter continued his education, attending a master's program at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, where it's reported he obtained a master's degree in special education with a secondary degree or certification in mathematics in 2019. Part of the testimony at the trial was that the defendant was working as a teacher in a program for underprivileged or disabled children for approximately 4 years when he returned to New Jersey after learning that he was Corey's father. He has no military history. He's single. His only child was Corey, who's obviously the victim in this case. Thereafter, the defendant also had some employment in construction. He has a substance abuse history by his own report of alcohol and marijuana, which he describes as only socially, and prior cocaine use, which he describes as, quote, rarely, close quote. In terms of treatment, defendant attended a treatment program via Catholic Charities in 2019 for marijuana use, as that was ordered by the Division of Child Protection and Permanency, otherwise known as DCP&P. In terms of prior contacts with the criminal justice system, the defendant has no ascertainable juvenile record. The pre-sentence report provides information about criminal record, not only as an adult, but as a juvenile in this or other states or in any United States court. So as an adult, defendant had a municipal ordinance charge against him for loitering in Jamesburg in 2011, for which he received fines in municipal court. That's not a crime or offense under the Code of Criminal Justice in New Jersey. It's a local ordinance violation and is of somewhat little to no weight really with respect to this sentencing. In February of 2020, defendant was charged in the borough of Spotswood with marijuana offenses and pled guilty or was found guilty of possession of drug paraphernalia with intent to use, a disorderly persons offense in New Jersey. That is not a crime or a felony level or indictable offense, but it's a disorderly persons offense. His next reported contact was the endangering charge and the homicide charges. In this matter, the court has received numerous character letters from both sides. Or I should say, character letters from the defense and victim impact letters. Let me make clear what I have considered and what I'm allowed to consider in this matter. I've always considered the pre-sentence investigation, as I'm required to do that. It's mandated by both statute and court rule. The excellent sentencing memoranda submitted by both sides. The character letters submitted by defendants' friends and family, as I'm required to consider those. The state has submitted additional exhibits, which I've reviewed and we'll talk about in a moment. And I have considered those letters submitted on behalf of Corey by persons who qualify as members of Corey's family and/or qualify under the Victim Rights Act to be able to submit information to the court. The court staff has also received several hundred letters from around the country and, in fact, from other countries by persons who do not meet the definition of being heard as a victim under the Victim Rights Act or the Victim Rights Amendment to the New Jersey Constitution. In a homicide case, the victim includes a spouse, parent, legal guardian, grandparent, child, sibling, domestic partner, or civil union partner of the decedent. New Jersey Statute 52:4, uppercase B-37. So I'm not permitted to consider those letters or review them. My court staff engaged in an excellent system to screen me from things that I'm not permitted to consider, and no part of my sentencing decision today is based upon those letters. I certainly respect everyone's right to have an opinion, but a sentencing proceeding in a criminal court is not permitted to be based upon a popular opinion poll. Instead, I'm required to make my decision based upon the Code of Criminal Justice in New Jersey, the aggravating and mitigating factors set forth in New Jersey's sentencing statute 2C:44-1, and the Supreme Court and appellate precedents that are binding upon me. The letters I have reviewed, however, that are permissible for me to review, present two diametrically opposed portraits of the defendant. Defendant's friends and family characterize him as a loving and caring father, that he gave up his career teaching in Baltimore and returned to New Jersey upon learning that he was Corey's father in approximately 2019. They claim that Corey was the center of defendant's universe. He took Corey hiking, on trips to the beach, bought him a bicycle. After residing at his mother and father's house for several months, he moved to his own address, a multifamily complex in Barnegat, where he could enroll Corey to school. Family indicates that at times Mr. Gregor was able to work remotely so he could care for Corey a greater period of time. They claim that Corey's grades improved, his subject matter skills improved in school, his behavior improved. Refer to the fact that defendant had an apartment with a separate bedroom for Corey where there were toys, a bed, and furniture. Many of the letters express a great deal of frustration and even anger about comments on the internet and the intense social media coverage given, as well as some of the news media coverage. It's not appropriate for this court to respond to the comments people have made on the internet. I did not review them, and I don't intend to. Many of the letters on behalf of the defendant also talk about various custody and parenting time issues and that litigation, some of which was relevant at trial and was discussed. But this is a criminal sentencing proceeding, and it's not an appropriate forum to relitigate those custody orders. Many of the letters submitted on behalf of the defendant also indicate agreement with the opinion expressed by Dr. Michael Bodden. It's at times criticized me for not somehow telling the jury to accept Dr. Bodden's opinion over Dr. Andrews. Credibility questions are reserved exclusively for the jury, and that is whether it be a fact witness or an expert witness. Anyone who's here for the trial knows I gave the jury detailed instructions with respect to every expert witness. I read a separate instruction on the jury's evaluation of expert testimony. A jury can accept all of an expert testimony, part of it, or none of it. And that was the jury's province to do so. It was not for me to interfere with that. In fact, it would have been inappropriate for me to interfere with that. Both experts were well qualified. While Dr. Bodden may have somewhat more notoriety, Dr. Andrew was obviously a well-qualified forensic pathologist with years of experience and even a pediatric specialty. Defendant's mother and father wrote very detailed letters to this court. I have no doubt that they are genuinely suffering as a result of this. They indicate that they lost their first grandchild as a result of it. Defendant's father submitted an 8-page letter where he expresses how the loss has affected him and his wife, as well as a great deal of comments with respect to, or I should say a great deal of frustration with respect to the comments on social media. Defendant's mother also submitted a very heartfelt letter about how this has affected her as well. Defendant's other family members and many friends submitted letters attesting to his character. There were 14 letters on behalf of family members, 23 letters on behalf of friends. I've considered them to the extent they're appropriate. However, one thing is important to address. Many of the letters submitted on behalf of the defendant tried to portray the Treadmill incident in a certain way. They indicate that defendant Christopher Gregor was a driven athlete, that he learned as a child, if you fall, you get back up. And they tried to portray the Treadmill incident as simply that. If you fall, you get back up. That is an unreasonable and inaccurate portrayal of what we all saw on the Treadmill incident. You cannot analogize that Treadmill incident to a young boy or girl learning to ride a bike without training wheels and falling. Son, get back on and try again. That's not what we saw in the Treadmill incident. The victim side has submitted a variety of letters which present a starkly different picture. They portray the defendant as a monster. They described acts defendant has committed against Brianna, Mikolo, other acts against Corey, and even against third parties, all of which were outside the scope of this trial. The claimed defendant has a long criminal record, that he's been convicted of offenses. Some of that was mentioned by the victims today, the victim representatives that spoke today. The court can only sentence a defendant for what he's been convicted of, not for actions described respectfully in hearsay accounts that are not supported by criminal judgments of conviction or some other finding by a court or written admission by a defendant or oral admission under oath by a defendant. In fact, courts are not permitted to use what's called as propensity evidence absent a prior criminal conviction. The state has also submitted for my consideration a series of exhibits detailing police reports or at times reports from campus security officers at various colleges. The vast majority of those incidents appear not to have resulted in any criminal charges. A couple of incidents appear to have resulted in some criminal charges which were ultimately dismissed. And as I say, the pre-sentence investigation report would include anything that would result in a conviction, even something as simple as a municipal ordinance or a DUI. Every day when I do sentencings, I see someone has a DUI in this state or other states. There's no DUIs listed on defendants' criminal history. Some of the things that the state has submitted are relatively minor. A campus security report of a security guard going to a dorm room, finding 8 or 9 students and a bunch of empty cans of beer. Even if that were accurate and proven and something I could consider, it's really not of much consequence. Some of the other things are a little less flattering. There's police reports from all the states that Ms. Lento indicated. But as I said, it appears almost none of them resulted in charges, and there were no convictions if there were any charges. The state relies upon a rather outdated case called State versus Green from 1973, asking me to rely upon these things so I can get a composite picture of the whole person. And in that older case, our courts used to consider that a judge could rely upon charges that have been brought and dismissed to determine whether or not the defendant was deterred from future conduct. In other words, you were fortunate enough to have the charges dismissed, therefore you should be deterred from future criminal conduct. And while that sounds rational enough, our Supreme Court in 2015 made clear that that is not proper for a sentencing judge. In State versus KS 220 New Jersey 190, at 199, a 2015 New Jersey Supreme Court case, our Supreme Court made clear that it is disapproving of Green insofar it allowed courts to consider arrests or dismiss charges as it relates to deterrence. It made clear that deterrence is directed at people who have been convicted of wrongful acts or have otherwise admitted wrongful acts. I don't mean admitted them in a line in a police report. I mean admitted them under oath or admitted them in a written statement or a Mirandized statement or something to that extent. So while everyone tries to paint a very unflattering picture of the defendant, I don't have the luxury of considering those hearsay documents. There's plenty of times here that a police report's been inaccurate. Many of the incidents submitted by the state involve allegations of campus security officers about 6, 7, 8, 10 students, of which the defendants once mentioned. So whether they're accurate or not, there's not accurate proof before me to rely upon those. There's also been some suggestion about, in some of the letters submitted, about favoring one side or the other in this trial. Let me make clear, I had no prior involvement or knowledge of Mr. Gallucci. I never met him prior to the first time he appeared for Mr. Gregor. I have no knowledge of the Gregor family or anyone associated with the Gregor family. If I did, I would have disqualified myself from the case, like I do every week when, for some reason or another, I know something about a person, a defendant, a case, a witness. There's plenty of other judges that I would just I would have the case sent to. So now I have to gauge in a consideration of the aggravating and mitigating factors that are presented here. The state is entitled to be a forceful advocate for its position, and it advocates that I find aggravating factors 1 or 2. Aggravating factor 1 is appropriate when considering the nature and circumstances of the offense and the role of the actor in committing the offense, including whether or not the offense was committed in an especially heinous, cruel, or depraved manner. Aggravating factor 2 is appropriate when the gravity or seriousness of the harm inflicted on the victim, including whether or not the defendant knew that the victim was particularly vulnerable or incapable of resistance for a variety of reasons: advanced age, ill health, extreme youth, like Corey being young, or for any other reason was substantially incapable of exercising normal physical or mental power of resistance. So at first review, clearly you could say that those factors factually apply, and they do factually apply. But the analysis is not that simple. The question is whether they legally apply such that I can find them for the purposes of sentencing. Again, I don't have the luxury of expressing a personal opinion. I'm guided by our sentencing statute and the Supreme Court and appellate precedents, which I must follow. It's well settled that elements of a crime, including those that establish its grade, may not be used as a judge as aggravating factors for sentencing of that particular crime. Our Supreme Court has said to do so would result in impermissible double counting. In other words, counting the element of the crime and then increasing the sentence by saying it's particularly heinous or cruel. State versus Lawless, 214 New Jersey, 594 at 608, a 2013 case. State versus Krumphold, Kromphold, 162 New Jersey, 345, 353, a 2000 case. Our Supreme Court has said that sentencing courts must scrupulously avoid double counting facts that establish the element of a relevant offense. State versus Fuentes, 217 New Jersey, 57 at pages 74 and 75, a 2014 case. Ms. Lento argues that the acts in this case go beyond the elements of the offense, and she's a zealous advocate and she's entitled to argue that. However, with respect to the heinous nature of the acts, aggravating factor 1, whether something's heinous, cruel, or depraved, the jury instruction on endangering the welfare of a child contained various elements that the state had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Included in that element was cruelty. In fact, that appeared on page 16 of the jury charge, and it has a long definition of note, includes inflicting upon a child unnecessary suffering or pain, either mental or physical. The willful act of omission or commission whereby unnecessary pain and suffering, whether mental or physical, is caused or permitted to be inflicted on a child. Or exposing a child to unnecessary hardship, fatigue, mental or physical strains that tend to injure the health or physical and moral well-being of the child. Also, a detailed definition of abused, which is substantially similar. I read these in detail to the jury at trial. I don't need to read them now, but despite the zealous arguments by the state, that cruel, heinous act is an element of endangering the welfare of a child. What makes the treadmill video endangering is not one slip on the treadmill video. Now, although no one's specifically said this, I guess it could be argued that endangering the welfare of a child applies to a victim under the age of 18. And this could have happened to someone who was 16 or 17, and therefore, because Corey was 6 and a small child, that makes it worse. But this type of abuse wouldn't have been successful, for lack of a better term, on a 16 or 17-year-old. A 16 or 17-year-old would have been able to run on a treadmill, would have known how to get back on. The abuse on the treadmill is only inflicted because Corey is of that youth. So aggravating factor 2, that Corey's incapable of resistance because of extreme youth, is again an element of the offense. You can't picture a high school 17-year-old or 16-year-old being put in that situation. You can picture, and we all pictured and we saw it at length, Corey being put in that situation because of his youth and his father's ability to control him. There's no audio in the treadmill video, but obviously Corey's getting back on the treadmill, not voluntarily, and then towards the last 2 falls, Corey's picked up by his father and put back on the treadmill. So those are elements of the offense, and as much as I would like to say, yes, they're present, they're not legally sustainable, and all I'd be asking for is an appellate court to tell us they're not legally sustainable. So I can't find aggravating factors 1 or 2 because the offenses include that. The same is true with respect to the aggravated manslaughter offense. Not only did the state have to prove the defendant caused Corey's death recklessly, the state had to prove the defendant did so under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to human life. Again, in the jury instructions, I advised the jury of what that means, that the state had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant acted under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to human life. And that phrase does not focus on the defendant's state of mind, but rather on the circumstances under which he acted. In light of all the evidence, the jury had to find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant's conduct resulted in a probability of death as opposed to a mere possibility of death. And if so, the jury could then find, as it did, that the defendant acted under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life. So, therefore, on the aggravated manslaughter charge, I can't say I'm going to double count and it was extremely heinous and cruel, because extremely heinous and cruel is an example of conduct manifesting extreme indifference to human life. And one of the reasons it's extremely indifferent is because it was perpetrated on a 6-year-old, 60-pound boy who obviously wasn't capable of resistance. So for those reasons, I respectfully disagree with the argument that I could find those factors. I can find aggravating factor 3, that the defendant is likely to commit a new offense based upon the defendant's disorderly persons offense record, based upon the defendant's attempt to influence his mother's testimony, which caused defense counsel to then forego calling his mother as a witness. His mother had testified at pretrial hearings before this court outside the presence of the jury. After one of those hearings, defendant, speaking to his mother on a recorded line from the Ocean County Jail, engaged in attempts which the state portrayed as attempting to influence or tamper with her testimony. The parties came in the next day outside the presence of the jury, or the next court day, and brought that to my attention, submitted a transcript to me, and the parties also indicated that the actual recording is worse than a reading of the cold transcript. I'm permitted to consider that because that was evidence on this record and shows someone who, even in the course of the trial, with extremely effective and experienced criminal defense counsel, was still trying to undermine the criminal justice process. I'm also permitted to consider defendant's attempts to flee the jurisdiction after Corey's death on April 2nd, 2021. He did not simply leave the hospital and drive to, say, a relative's house or to some other location close by. Defendant drove all the way to Arkansas. I don't know, and I didn't allow an answer to the question of whether or not he was on the way to Mexico, because that would have been speculation, but he was, by Detective Sergeant Raymond Cole's testimony, 45 minutes from the Texas border. Never once in this case has anyone submitted there were any relatives in Texas or in Arkansas, but the behavior was, in an understatement, peculiar at least. This was not a defendant that left and went a few miles away. It's true the defendant did turn around at some point. His father testified at his father's urging to come back, likely because it made him look guilty, and it certainly did make him look guilty. I'm also entitled to consider, as aggravating factor 3, that the defendant committed these two separate acts on separate dates, that the Treadmill video shows a callous display of the defendant towards Corey. In addition, despite a long prison sentence, the defendant can still commit new crimes while incarcerated. Someone who's violent, who lacks impulse control, who's motivated by anger, can reoffend while in a correctional setting against corrections officers, civilian correction staff, medical staff, or other inmates, particularly if another person is vulnerable, incapable of resistance. But it's worth describing some other aspects of the Treadmill video. We will, of course, focus on Corey's repeated falls on the video, what can be really described as the child being ejected off the video, almost like on a conveyor belt. And I remember the reaction from the jurors when they first saw it. They sucked in their breath when they saw that. And then you see Corey getting back on and it happening again and again. In fact, even before the first fall, you see this young man get on a treadmill and run like he's a champion. I can't imagine a 6-year-old who was able to do that. I was so surprised by that. He obviously knows how to use that treadmill. And then he's doing a great job for several minutes while his father is working out in the gym, doing various exercises. And then his father comes over and starts to increase the speed and perhaps the incline. And Corey tries to keep up. And you keep, when you're looking, you keep hoping that, okay, it's only going to be for a short sprint, but it just keeps going. And you see on the tread, Corey falling further and further behind. The defender doesn't walk around behind him to grab him. And you see finally he can't keep up. And then to everyone's horror, you see what happens as it goes on 5 more times. Mr. Gallucci described that to the jury in his opening statement as horrifying, told the jury they were going to find it horrifying. And that was obviously strategic to try and minimize the impact of it. But because it is so horrifying, what do we kind of discount in the rest of that video? It's actually 4 separate videos, but the totality of the circumstances from when Corey arrives at the apartment complex and goes into the gym with his father till he leaves. You see Corey being brought into the parking lot by his mother and getting out of the car. You see the defendant approach the car. There is no loving interaction between Mr. Gregor and Corey. There's none of the kindness you would expect to see from a father who claims to have left Baltimore, given up his career to come home to New Jersey and be a father. There's no little pat on the back, no hug, no high five to Corey. Corey goes right in, and the state alleges that defendant puts up 2 fingers to say you're 2 hours late, and that's your punishment. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but he does. There is a shot of him holding up 2 fingers. And then after Corey falls repeatedly, and then they walk out, there's no loving interaction. There's no pat on the back. Good job, son. There's no hug. Are you okay, son? There's nothing. In fact, the defendant walks out and Corey is trailing behind him, having to grab the door himself. And I'm not denigrating Corey when I say that, but he's being treated by the defendant like he's the stray dog following along. So while I respect the character letters I received saying what a loving father he is, a picture is worth 1,000 words and a video is worth 10,000 words. So whatever happened that day, Corey was not receiving love or companionship or kindness or support. He wasn't even receiving what could be described as A tough father was going to raise him to be a man. Get back on the bike when you fell off. That was abuse of the most egregious sort. And it doesn't square with the defendant's statements today. Now, to say that, however, I'm not suggesting that Corey was mistreated at his grandparents' home in Monroe. There's nothing to indicate to me that what happened at his grandparents' home was anything other than appropriate. His mother and father testified, both the mother outside the presence of the jury, the father inside the presence of the jury. Although I don't want to get into all the social media attention, I would say that both sides, Corey's mom's side and defendant's parents, have a right to closure in this matter. And this venom back and forth should not be directed by either side. The individual responsible for Corey's death and for Corey's endangerment stands before the court today in a green and white jumpsuit, and the focus should be on him. Based upon all that, I find aggravating factor 3 is present, and I give it moderate weight. I say moderate weight because of the lack of a serious record. But let's talk about that record for a minute. The pre-sentence report confirms that this marijuana offense, again, it's not an egregious offense. In fact, the under 50 grams is no longer a crime or offense in New Jersey. The drug paraphernalia, which the defendant pled guilty to, is a disorderly person's offense still in New Jersey, so I'm allowed to consider it. It has a February 2020 date of violation, and just a week or so later, the imposition of a fine. But why is that date so significant in 2020? Because this is the man that returned from Baltimore in 2019 to come back and take care of his child, to give up his career, to be a great dad. We didn't have to do that. He could have said, listen, I relocated. I didn't know I had Corey. I'll pay child support. But he's portrayed by himself and his family as being this unselfish, altruistic person that gave up a career with urban teachers, that left a position where he obtained what appears to be an extraordinary education, a master's degree in special education with a secondary degree in mathematics at what is by all accounts a nationally, if not world-renowned university. But he came back here and he gets arrested for drug use at a time when he's going through custody battles. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to come here. I'm going to try and be the best father I can. I'm going back and forth to family court. There's all these orders back and forth. The mother who admitted it, that she struggled with substance abuse, but yet I'm going to place myself in such a reckless situation that I get arrested, to the point where defendant was ordered by the Division of Child Protection and Permanency to attend a treatment program through Catholic Charities in order to be approved for parenting. So that adds to my finding as to aggravating factor 3, that the defendant, even under those circumstances, was motivated to commit low-level drug offenses when he had everything to lose and nothing to gain by them. Aggravating factor 9 is certainly present. That is the need to deter this defendant and others. That is both known as specific deterrence and general deterrence. While I've not found aggravating factors 1 or 2 for the reasons I stated, it is clear that the offenses in this matter involve cruelty to this particularly young child of tender years who was incapable of resistance. That mandates the court place heavy weight on aggravating factor 9, so it provides strong deterrent to this defendant, as well as strong deterrence to others who would commit crimes against children, particularly children of tender years such as Corey. Defendant's a big, strong individual. His family has repeatedly talked about his athletic prowess. He was not only a high school but a college football player. The pre-sentence report details his height and weight. 6'1", 220. Corey's a little boy, was a little boy, and he deserved protection from his father, not abuse from his father. Mr. Gallucci has been a zealous advocate, and he has both in writing and orally argued for a series of mitigating factors. Mitigating factor 2 can be present when a defendant did not contemplate that his conduct would cause or threaten serious harm. While I respect defense counsel's position, everything you see on that treadmill contemplates at least the threat of serious harm. In fact, it's almost difficult to accept the medical testimony that the treadmill did not cause serious injuries. Dr. Andrew, I believe even Dr. Bodden, testified there were some abrasions, some bruising, but Corey did not sustain serious harm from that. But any reasonable, objective person watching that video would certainly say it threatened serious harm, particularly for such a small child. It would threaten serious harm for an adult to be on a treadmill and not be able to keep up, and then to try and jump back on. And I don't think the 6-year-old was jumping back on his own initiative. He was doing it because he was scared, he was being told to, and he was following his father's directives. So there's no basis to find that mitigating factor 2 exists. Mitigating factor 7 has been argued that a defendant has no prior history of delinquency or criminal activity or has led a law-abiding life for a substantial period of time. So I'm required to give some weight to that factor because the defendant has no felony level convictions in this or any other state, no indictable crimes in this or any other state. He has one ordinance violation and the one drug paraphernalia that I've just talked about. So while not perfect, it's certainly not a serious record. Despite everything that everyone has said about arrests in other states, it's a little difficult to accept that if someone's arrested multiple times in all these jurisdictions, that no prosecuting attorney chose to file charges, or if they did, they were very quickly dismissed. So the that this defendant has a serious record is just unfounded. I'm confident that the prosecutor's office would have submitted to me records of convictions that they existed anywhere. I mean, there are times I get records of convictions from Puerto Rico, and it takes the prosecutor's office a great deal of time and effort to get those. So here we have a series of police reports, which I can't consider. They're mostly one-sided hearsay anyway, but I'm not permitted under the case law to consider those. So I have to recognize some weight to be given to the lack of a record. So I give it moderate weight. But as I said, the disorderly person conviction is particularly telling because of the date involved. And it's when the defendant should know better, when he should be a law-abiding citizen, because he's trying to battle for custody of his child. So why engage in that drug use? And that's particularly true because the defense has, and I'm sure they felt obligated to, continue to raise Corey's mother's drug use, particularly during cross-examination and trial. So I find mitigating factor 7, but give it moderate rather than heavy weight. Defense counsel has also argued for mitigating factors 8 and 9, and they're somewhat similar. 8 would be appropriate when the defendant's conduct was a result of circumstances unlikely to recur, or the defendant's character and attitude indicate that he's unlikely to commit another offense. Those two mitigating factors, 8 and 9, are counterparts to aggravating factor 3, the risk to commit another offense. I've already found aggravating factor 3 exists, and it should be given moderate weight. Therefore, it's generally considered inappropriate to find mitigating factor 8 or 9. But regardless, those factors are not present, period, for the reasons I've indicated. I agree with the position of the state and the victims that defendant was motivated by anger, that he took advantage of someone who couldn't resist, someone of tender years, incapable of resistance. The treadmill video demonstrates Corey's fear. Someone who does that, who has that disposition, is likely to reoffend. Therefore, 8 and 9 are not present. Although not argued, mitigating factor 11 is likewise not present based upon defendant's injuries as reported in the pre-sentence report, for the reasons I've indicated, that the sports injuries and the left ankle injury can certainly be addressed by medical staff in any correctional facility. And if not, that correctional facility would transport the defendant to a hospital to be treated. So therefore, those do not overcome or even lessen the presumption of imprisonment. Based upon all the foregoing, then, I'm clearly convinced that the aggravating factors substantially outweigh the mitigating factors. So now I need to impose sentence, and then I'll address the state's request for whether the sentence should be consecutive or concurrent. I've appreciated that everyone has asked me to impose the maximum sentence. And I appreciate the emotion that's involved, the comments, and you've heard many of the things I just said about the Treadmill video and the callous behavior. Imposing the maximum sentence is just legally unsustainable by me. There's no appellate court that would say someone with only a very, very minor criminal record should get the maximum. It just doesn't happen despite the public perception that it should happen. So on count 2, aggravated manslaughter, I sentenced the defendant to the custody of the Commissioner Department of Corrections for a term of 20 years, subject to the No Early Release Act, New Jersey Statute 2C:43-7.2, such that he has to serve 85% of that sentence before being eligible for parole. On count 1, endangering the welfare of a child, a second-degree crime, I sentenced the defendant to the custody of the Commissioner Department of Corrections for a term of 5 years. The defendant has 885 days of jail credit. So I have to address the request for consecutive sentences. Again, there's a great deal of guidelines the court has to follow and a great deal of Supreme Court case law on this. The factors involve, first, the principle that there should be no free crimes. Secondly, whether or not the crimes and their objectives were predominantly independent of each other. Whether the crimes involved separate acts of violence or threats of violence. Whether the crimes were committed at different times or separate places, rather than being committed so closely in time and place as to indicate a single period of aberrant behavior. Whether the crimes involved multiple victims. And whether or not the sentences to be imposed are numerous, meaning multiple counts. Here we have 2 counts. With the proviso, again, that can be no double counting of aggravating factors. When there are multiple crimes involving multiple victims, the law is that the total impact of singular offenses against different victims will generally exceed the total impact on a single victim. We don't have that here. We have a single victim. But first, not to impose a consecutive sentence for the endangering would be to make that endangering offense a free crime. And one need only view the circumstances of the offense and the video to know it shouldn't be a free crime. The crimes are somewhat interrelated. They're not completely independent of each other, but they are predominantly independent of each other. Corey was subjected to an awful time on the treadmill that I've described. It was brutal to watch that treadmill video because you rarely see a child essentially inflict harm on himself in the beginning until his father starts to put him back on it. So it doesn't take a vivid imagination to consider the fear Corey's in at that point. The 2 incidents are approximately 12 or 13 days apart, although they both occur in Barnegat. They're at different times, and they are at separate places, although relatively close together, the gym at the complex and the defendant's apartment at the complex. But they're not so sufficiently close in time as to be a single episode of aberrant behavior. This is not someone that went and committed 4 car burglaries in a parking lot, one after another, which would be a single episode of aberrant behavior. They clearly involved separate acts of violence and or threats of violence and harm to Corey. The second act being the ultimate act, which was successful in ending his life. They don't involve multiple victims. So I conclude, for those reasons, that it would be to send a message to the public, to the defendant, and to those who abuse children that you can get away with one offense if you get caught on the other. And that's simply inappropriate for deterrent reasons in general or for specific deterrence in this case. And therefore, I conclude that count 1 and 2 should be consecutive. The law requires me to make a additional statement on the overall fairness of a consecutive sentence. This is a requirement imposed by our Supreme Court in State versus Torres, 246, New Jersey, at page 246, a 2021 case, where our court held that the trial judges to make an explicit statement of fairness that explains the overall fairness of the consecutive sentence. So first, I've imposed sentence on the second-degree crime at the bottom of the second-degree range. Second-degree range is 5 years to 10 years. I conclude that if I were to go greater than the bottom of the second-degree range, I would be subject to an abuse of discretion as that being excessive. Secondly, the endangering sentence is not part of the No Early Release Act. It does not contain a court-imposed period of parole and eligibility. It's referred to as a flat sentence. Additionally, I conclude that the consecutive sentence is fair because of the reasons I just articulated about no free crimes. Defendant is 32 years of age. Absent some unusual medical event for a young person, he will eventually be released to his own liberty. He will eventually be a free man to walk around. Corey, of course, will not. So this is not the functional equivalent of a life sentence, despite the imposition of a consecutive sentence. It's also fair and just, given some of the testimony by Dr. Andrew, who testified in great detail about this, got down off the witness stand, went to the large screen TV and pointed out the bruising all over Corey's body, and testified about the injuries and bruising of different ages in different levels of healing, demonstrating the doctor's concern about ongoing abuse. We had pretrial hearings about this. The state in count one, endangering, originally alleged abuse was occurring from December of 2020 through March of 2021, up through the date of Corey's death. I concluded that, really to protect the defendant's right to a fair trial, I concluded that many of the other incidents were attributed to normal childhood activities. Going hiking and getting a branch and that comes back from a shrub into the tree, playing sports. And because there was what I found to be insufficient medical documentation or medical testimony that those instances were attributed to abuse, I did not allow them in. But Dr. Andrew, who did not testify in that pretrial hearing, but testified later, was very compelling about those levels of injury and their different states of healing. Kids get bumps and bruises. Corey had more than bumps and bruises that you would see on a 6-year-old. So for all the foregoing reasons, I conclude the imposition of a consecutive sentence is overall fair under the circumstances of this case. The state's taken an additional position that I should impose the least restrictive or flat prison sentence first, such that it precedes the more restrictive prison sentence, meaning that the defendant should serve the endangering sentence before the aggravated manslaughter sentence. There's a very difficult legal analysis associated with that. I rely upon State versus Ellis. It's a television case from 2002, 346 New Jersey Super 583. And a Supreme Court opinion in State versus Pierce, P-I-E-R-C-E, 220 New Jersey 205, and a Supreme Court decision from 2014. It is legally possible. In fact, what the Ellis case says is, while it's not illegal, it's difficult to justify. And it typically runs afoul of certain sentencing guidelines, and it may interfere with the expertise of the parole board in determining when a defendant should be released on parole. And based upon both of those decisions, I conclude that I cannot impose the least restrictive sentence first without engaging in an abuse of discretion. So therefore, I direct that the No Early Release Act sentence on the aggravated manslaughter count run first, followed by the flat sentence on the endangering count, such that the aggregate sentence is 25 years and that the jail credit of 885 days comes off the aggregate sentence. Another condition of the No Early Release Act is that defendant shall serve a 5-year period of parole supervision upon release. that he shall provide a DNA sample and pay for the cost the same. There are two $50 victim of crime compensation assessments, two $75 safe neighborhood assessments, one $30 law enforcement training and equipment fee. The superintendent of the institution where defendant is incarcerated shall draw sufficient monies in an amount not to exceed 1/3 of the inmate's total income as may be required to pay these assessments. The Office of the Victim of Crime Compensation Board submitted a request for restitution for funeral expenses. There's been testimony during the course of the case about whether or not defendant's parents paid for funeral expenses, whether or not the Ms. Mitchell's family paid for them through the VCCO office. I've considered, am I supposed to hold a hearing on that? And I conclude that the parties need closure in this matter. They don't need another hearing on whether or not those expenses actually went to the funeral, or and the VCCO letters also refers to some other expenses not associated with the funeral that may not be directly attributable to defendant's conduct. If these were out-of-pocket expenses by anyone qualifying as a victim, I'd be inclined to consider them further. The Office of the Victim of Crime Compensation Board exists for the benefit of victims. It charges, the defendants are assessed, like this defendant's been assessed, to penalties for that, to fund that. And I conclude at this point that it's not appropriate to order that restitution because of the questions concerning who paid for the funeral. And more importantly, I would have to do an analysis of the defendant's ability to pay now or in the future. He's been incarcerated for the last 885 days. He's been unemployed. He clearly has no ability to pay now, and he has little ability to pay for the next 25 years. So I conclude for those reasons that mitigating factor 6 is not present. There's no restitution to be paid, no ability to pay restitution. Therefore, I do not order restitution. If there's any bail in this matter, it's discharged. There are no dismissals. Madam Clerk, is there anything else I need to address? And Mr. Glucci, we get an appeal rights form? All right. Anything further from council?
No,
All right.
Judge,
Thank you, everyone, for your excellent presentations. That concludes the matter.
Thank you.
All right.
Wait, do not exit yet. The back row's gonna exit first.
Wow. So I still don't know. I think that's what he was going over, the first degree, second degree, third degree child endangerment. Because if you look at, so we gave 5 years for that, right? So first degree is 10 to 20 years child endangerment. Second degree is 5 to 10 years. And third degree is 3 to 5 years. So, because he said he wasn't given the max, so it must have been second degree from all the mitigating factors, like all the factors he went in, it must have boiled down to a second degree, right? Because he said he wasn't given the max. He gave 5 years. So 5 years would be the max of a third degree, but it would be the lower end of a second degree. First degree is 10 to 20. So, and then if you look at the manslaughter, it's 10 to 20 years, but the aggravated manslaughter is 10 to 30 years. So he gave it right in the middle. It's 25 years. He's eligible for parole in 85% of that time. So in about 21 years, he'll be eligible for parole. So I don't know if he'll get it or not. What do you guys think? I guess I understand, because he's saying, like, if he would have given him the max without like all those circumstances of what you need to qualify for the max, he's like, he could probably have appealed it, and then it would just be like time consuming money, and he might have been able to appeal it. I mean, they know the laws and the rules. I'm going to trust the judge that if he did it, they probably would have appealed it and been look, there's no way you should have given him the max, maybe. I don't know if he would have stood a chance, but oh well. I mean, I don't know the laws that good. You know what I'm saying? We got to trust the judge, I guess. What do you guys think? You don't think he will? Well, no, not the lowest though, because he gave them the middle for the manslaughter. That wasn't the lowest, it was the middle, because it was 10 to 20, 10 to 30 for the aggravated part of manslaughter. He gave him 20. So that was in the middle. Now for the endangerment, I don't know which one he classified it as, but I know when he was saying it, he said he wasn't given the max for the endangerment. So I'm guessing he classified it as the second degree, which is 5 to 10 years, which is the lowest. Because otherwise, if it was the third degree, that would have been the max. I was kind of zoning in and out because it was so long-winded. They always are. So I wasn't like, I know if I really would have listened to it twice, I could have followed everything he was saying. But because I was like, oh, in and out and in chat, I missed some of the stuff, but I did catch things here and there. And like I said, I know he said he wasn't given the max on the endangerment. So I'm guessing he classified it as second degree. Right? What did you guys take it? Just from the sentences, because like I'm looking up all the different sentencing. Like I said, third degree is 3 to 5 years. Second or first degree is 10 to 20. Third degree is 3 to 5. And second degree is 5 to 10. So I don't know. I mean, regardless, I guess who cares how you break it down? It's what the result is. And the result is 25 years. That's freaking crazy. I don't get how some people could have like CA charges that's so bad that the child dies, but then they get murder. But yet with this, well, I guess because the jury, that's the way the jury voted on manslaughter. So I don't know, man. I wish I would have watched the whole trial, because I didn't watch it all, so I'm probably missing some pieces, but a lot of you guys in chat have, and you say no. Interrogation files. Hey, what's up? What's up? Yeah, 25 years. And he's eligible for parole in 85% of that, which is like 21 years. Which doesn't mean he'll get parole. It's hard to get parole. So if he doesn't like from day one start taking classes and be like a model inmate, I mean, I guess they probably look at the last 10. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Even if he screws up at first and then straightens up, but I mean, they look, I mean, you have to be good. You have to take the classes. You have to be rehabilitated and show that you are, explain that you are. It's not easy, So, I mean, you have to either really have changed or really like fake it. You know what I'm saying? Really put all the effort, and then, it doesn't mean deep down that you are changed, but you have to put in that effort. So he may not even be eligible for parole. But even if not, 25 years, he's 32. He'll be, wow, even if he does the whole time. And wait. How much he already did? What, not even a year yet, though, right? 185 days. So when did he turn 32? So if we just average like 57, but possibly 53. Wait, what's this? Hold on.
He can know the truth for proper rumors, but what those
What's
rumors
this?
are, they're not competent.
Oh, I want to see what. Oh, Young Thug. Oh, it just transferred over to that. That was weird because I shared my tab, which only shares that tab. So somehow it went into that. But anyway, so 56. So he could possibly, or wait. He could possibly get out at when he's 53. Between 53 and 57. That's pretty young. That's only 10 years from my age right now. So that means he could still have a whole life, like a big life in front of him, which I don't know. Well, because the jury found him on the lesser charge, Jules. The jury found him on manslaughter instead of murder. That's what they found. So it's, the way our system works, the jury, I don't know why they did. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't watch it all. So I don't know. I don't have all the facts. I mean, I feel like I did see enough where I feel like I saw enough to see that I don't know. I don't see how the manslaughter. I don't. Yeah. No, he did explain them, but I couldn't fall. If I really wanted to, I could, but I was in chat. So when I'm like typing in chat, trying to read chat, sometimes it's hard for me to like when it's so much. So I missed a lot, but I know he was explaining it. He has to make sure he covers it all and explains it of why he's picking it. You know, I accept it, but it does suck. I bet you Brianna's not happy. Because that means she may one day have to run into him in the store or in public or see his face. You know what I'm saying? Like she'll one day see him out and about, or, you know, of here, like, oh, he's just going to have this free life after he took her son's life. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to be hard. Oh, so he took the deal where he doesn't get the death sentence, Felicia? Chad Dorman? Okay. Oh, yeah, I know. It's crazy. When you get that many people in chat, it's crazy how fast it goes. 20 years or less. If he had done the plea deal, it was 20 years or less. Wait, what plea deal? Wait. You're saying that Christopher was offered a plea deal? Is that what you're saying? I didn't know that. Maura, will you, because I don't know, we were talking about two different cases, so can you specify what you're talking about? Because there's no way Chad would have been offered a plea deal 20 years or less. He flat out freaking murdered 3 of his kids execution style. But you're saying Christopher, so wow, he tried to fight it and then got an extra 5 years. Okay. Well, he probably, in my I feel like if he wouldn't have, he would always wondered why, maybe, or not wonder why, wondered if. So I mean, it's probably like in his head better that he did, because then he knows that he tried and lost, you know, because he probably, like, people like that think, you know, I'm gonna win, I get off on it. But no, I mean, I wish I knew exactly like what happened. You know, we'll never know unless if he freaking decides to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Now that everything's all done, and like, what happened to Corey? Like, what did you do to him? What happened that day? You know, like, what happened that day? I have a question. If he would decide, like, let's say in like 5 years, he has this whatever, this change of heart, and he decides to come clean and just say what happened. And let's say the truth is he like I don't know, like, I'm trying to think, like, hit him with something on the chest and like beat him, like pushed him on the ground or whatever. Something happened and it was a really bad like hit. Okay. That was probably what did it. And he decides to be honest and say that. Can they go back? I know they can't go back on the charge because he's already been charged, right? But can they go and like they can't, they wouldn't be able to like go make him stay longer, right? Like, I mean, can they be like, okay, well, we're doing 30 years the max and giving him the max, like, once it's set? Because I'm just curious, like, if he would, what would happen? Because we don't know what happened. Like, he's saying no, he's just saying that he's trying to make it seem like he was sick with what is the one thing that his defense was trying to say, that Brianna took him to the doctor and they said he had this and then she took him home? What was it? I can't think for some reason. It's like some infection. Can somebody help me? I was trying to think of it earlier and I couldn't think. Is my recall. I just sometimes I can't think. My memory on, like, in my head, I could see it, but I just can't think of the word. Drugs. That's what it does to your brain, guys. think twice before you do them. Because look at me. I know I'm smart and it's there, but it's like I can't recall stuff. Sepsis, thank you. Thank you. So they can't. Okay, so maybe he will. I mean, I hope. I don't know. Like he act like he had remorse there. I don't know if it was fake or not, because he wanted. They were about to sentence him, so he thought, maybe the lawyer's like, be sad because it'll help. So I'm not sure, but like, I wish he could at least say what happened, because the truth isn't out there. I don't even know. I don't think he will, but that would be the right thing to do, is just be like, this is what happened. Just like Chris Watts. Oh, I found God, but you can't even freaking tell. You can't even say what happened. You can't even freaking come clean. And now you're trying to blame NK, whether she's involved or not. But like, you can't even at least come flat out and at least say she did it. Oh, she pushed my hand. Like it was her, like making me do it. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, he can't even come clean with it. 4 different stories. God, my butt. No, I'm not saying I don't believe him, God. I'm saying he doesn't believe in it either. You're not saved because you're not being honest. You're not freaking being honest. You're still lying, trying to, I don't know, protect yourself in a weird way, or it's just weird. You know what I'm saying? He's not getting out. Does he really? I mean, maybe he thinks he's going to get an appeal. I'm talking about Chris Watts. You're not going to get it. I mean, maybe, I guess. But still, then. So that's another thing. We're never going to know what happened with that. We'll never truly know. People take it to their grave. Oh, wait, what? It's hard to tell on your avatar if you're alive or not. The red dot blends with the avatar colors. Just a thought. Wait. What do you mean? Hold on. Avatar? What red dot? Hold on. Because what I'm seeing right now, it shows. Hold on. Let me see what you're seeing. I'm a little bit confused, though. Because I could try to figure it out, but I don't understand what you're seeing. Under subscriptions? Okay, let me see. Does it look like, because look, let me just show you something. Let me share my screen. Because if it's something that's confusing, maybe I could fix it, but I'm trying to figure out what you're seeing. So this is what, hold on, let me share my screen real quick. So this is what, look, like this, because I'm like this live right here, or what? Like, what are you see? Because it just says live, but I'm not sure what you're seeing. Hold on, let me see if I do. Hold on 1 second. Layout. Hold on, I think I could view it. No. I don't know. Well, I'm not sure because I'm not understand what you're actually seeing. It's not letting me. Usually it lets me view what it looks like for you guys. Why isn't it not letting me? Layout. Hold on. Oh, that. Is that what it is? I don't know. Huh. Thank you. But do you I don't think it blends. Maybe I'm not. It does? No, not at all. Why are some of those blue though? Huh. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But thanks for letting me know. I'll look into it. Yeah. All right. So you guys, I think, I mean, that's all I have. I just wanted to watch the sentencing with you guys. Very interesting. That was not what I expected. I thought he was going to do the max. So it was kind of surprising, but oh, okay. Wow. So you could see if somebody's just like online, but what happens if my computer's always on? Like I have my everything's always on with my app and stuff. So does it always show blue? So you guys, it doesn't mean I'm on because I always have my stuff like on. Does that make sense? So it might always show blue and I might not really actually be on. All right, guys, I'm gonna go eat some lunch and I gotta go to the bedroom and work on some stuff. But thank you for watching it with me. And yeah, it's kind of not really doesn't really seem fair that somebody could be so cold and do that to their child and still is going to have a life outside of when he gets out. But because people see that, they might not let him, you guys, like you guys are saying, they might do something to him in prison because if they see like, we're not going to let this guy get out, he's going to get out and have a whole new, like almost a good, like 20 more years, 25, 30 years possibly left to live. They might do some prison justice or whatever you call it, you know? But yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks, Sideways. Or I just want to say Sideways, Side Quest Beth. Thank you. Nope, not today. Justice Jane, Karina, Sarah, Susie Hall. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they don't have to. They don't have to. So, yeah, and then they said pneumonia. Yep. Kelsey, hey, juror number 13. Yeah, I don't either really, but I wonder if we are seeing what that it has to be. Yeah, because I looked under the one where it said live and then the one you sent me. It has to be that one, I bet. But thanks for letting me know, Justice. More. That reminds me of Schitt's Creek. Mom, I don't know why. I'm probably Sandra, Elvin, yeah. Hey, Patty. All right, guys, go eat some lunch. And yeah, I'm gonna go eat something. My stomach's like growling. Is that what you guys say? There's another word people use. What do you guys use? Mary? Okay. I was wondering, I was like, what does she mean years? But I just thought it was just my silliness not understanding. All right, guys. I starving Marvin. Hey, Jen, growling. What's another word though? Because I've heard other ones, but I forget what it is. Growling. Anybody else use a different word? All right, guys, I really got to go to the bathroom though. I'm holding it. I'm gonna go. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks, Sarah, for letting me know about this. I didn't even know the sentence was today. This was a great idea, to be honest. It was a really good idea. I'm glad I have a little variety of, stuff on my channel. So thank you. I always miss like things like this because I'll be like so deep into a case that like I won't realize that there's something going on with a case that I've covered before, like a sentence or verdict or trial or update, because I'll be like zoned into a case I'm working on and then I miss that. So thank you, Sarah. Seriously, this was good. I'm so glad that I did it. This was a good afternoon hanging out with y'all. And grumbling, okay, that's one. Rumbling, yes. Bye, Susan. All right, guys. Bye bye, everybody.